3 minutes after 10, and I think somewhat oddly for a relatively successful media platform at the moment, this programme has not talked endlessly about immigration for the last, 10, 15, 20 years. I remember the first time that I began to discuss it on LBC, and it was quite an awakening for me. The kind of people who would ring in to insist they weren't allowed to say what they wanted to say about immigration without being called racist. So you'd encourage them to say what they wanted to say with the promise that you wouldn't call them racist, and then they'd say enormously racist things. Unfortunately, that was at the time a fringe, and sometimes even for, I suppose, possessors of white privilege, it was even sometimes quite a funny experience. I don't imagine it was very funny if you were listening and the person that my callers expressed undiluted hatred for was you, although I'm sure they'd follow it up very quickly by saying, oh, no, I don't mean you. But it has become, whether you like it or not, the defining political issue of our age. There is no way that Brexit could have been achieved without people who did actually know better, harnessing, stapling themselves to the racist rhetoric and the hideous bigotry of people like Nigel Farage. I don't, for the record, think that Boris Johnson or even Jacob Rees-Mogg are possessed of that hideous bigotry. Not themselves, not in pure, unadulterated form of the kind that Nigel snorts every night, but the kind of political opportunism of it. Dominic Cummings was keen to distance himself from the toxicity of Farage's outfit, but I think that was actually truly cynical because he subsequently demonstrated quite a degree of comfort with the bigotries and hatreds that inform the currently most popular party in this country. And there is no earthly way that everybody minded to vote for them is a hideous racist. I know that upsets some people. They don't like that observation, but it simply can't be true. Which means that there is a constituency of people in this country who will hear the news today and respond both rationally and positively. Rationally and positively. They will learn that net migration has dropped below 200,000, the lowest point since the COVID pandemic, and crucially, it has pretty much halved since last year. So just before the current government came to power in 2023, these figures were close to 1 million. They have now come down by more than 80% to reach 193,000. Obviously, during the COVID pandemic, when you couldn't get in or out of the country, even if you wanted to, the numbers were absurd. But these figures are absolutely huge. These drops are unprecedented. They are extraordinary. They are caused by fewer and fewer people coming to Britain for work. And what we need to do now is park our concerns about the impact that will have on economic growth. Because I read something quite clever earlier this morning by one of my favourite contributors to the Blue Sky app, where I am occasionally to be found. And it was a point about not what is or what, no, not what should be or where logic would take us, but about what actually is. And it was an observation about people saying that when they voted in the Brexit, nobody voted for vote leave to be the actual government, which, while technically true, I think was sort of evidentially false. People kind of did vote for the key players in the Brexit movement to be in charge. It's why David Cameron resigned within 10 minutes of that result dropping. And I think immigration is in a very similar place. Immigration is not the problem everyone thinks it is an evidentially true observation. It does not cause anything like the problems that people like Stephen Yaxley Lennon and his fellow criminals repeatedly claim. It doesn't cause anything like the problems that Nigel Farage and his increasingly hideous coterie of cretins and cronies consistently contend. It simply doesn't. You know that. It's a matter of fact. Somebody born somewhere else commits a hideous crime. It's just hideous. Somebody born here commits a hideous crime. It's just hideous. Horrible story yesterday in Scotland about a complete failure to investigate a house of paedophilic horrors. A complete failure by the authorities. There's a very strong chance you're not aware of it because the disgusting human beings that were living in that house and abusing children are all white, British. So you probably won't even be aware of that story or hearing any calls for deep and widespread inquiries into how the hell it could possibly have happened under the noses of the authority figures. But it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, because there comes a point where, as Roland Smith writes this morning, if everybody thinks it is, then it kind of is. And he draws the parallel with people saying we are not electing vote leave, when those of us who were really paying attention kind of realised that everybody thought that we were. Politics, media, voters did think that they were electing the people who were most responsible for Brexit. There was no earthly way David Cameron could have come out after that referendum result and gone, oh, OK, well, I'll now do the will of the people and implement the result of the referendum. So this is going to sound really odd. I must be in quite a good mood this morning, because if I'd got out of bed on the wrong side, I would have, and in fact you could hear the intimation of what would have happened if I'd got out of bed on the wrong side. If you were listening to the last 15 minutes or so of Nick's show, I do this sort of little trail at about 9:45. And I said immigration has plummeted again, who cares? And it wasn't technically a rhetorical question, but it sounded like one, because I asked it with a sort of with a degree of I don't know, depression almost. Who cares? It doesn't matter. And that's born of my conviction that this is not good for the country. This is not good for the country. But people like me don't matter. But we lost. That game is over. Explaining that economic growth is contingent upon freedom of movement, or that if you have a mobile young workforce coming from the largest trading bloc in the history of humanity and you're part of it and they can come and go as they please, that these are all positives. That battle was lost. You know, that is why our economy, one of the reasons why our economy remains in the doldrums. It's one of the reasons why our immigration figures for a while had to rocket to replace all the people that we told to clear off. And, of course, people like Boris Johnson were never open or honest with you about that. All that ever got reported was the numbers, and all the people that were in the party that was governing at the time the numbers rocketed have either washed their hands of it completely, or the very, very worst of them, the most dishonest, the most disingenuous, the most dissembling, have crossed the House and joined the outfit that Farage fronts. That's where we are. It doesn't matter that plummeting immigration is bad for the country, fiscally bad, economically bad. It doesn't matter. The battle is lost. The people who want immigration to come down, and come down far, and come down fast, are in charge. Not, just of the government, because Shabana Mahmood's policies go to places that even some Tories would have balked at, but of the country. They are in charge of public discourse. There are books to be written, and I may yet write one of them, about how and why this happened. In fact, I kind of have already, if you want to have a look at how they broke Britain. But what you unleash when you allow racism back into the public space, you can never get back again. You can never rebottle it simply with argument and rhetoric. It's visceral. It's primal. It's ancient hatred that is being fanned and flamed and encouraged and fermented. And some people are very, very good at it. Their name also begins with F, actually, just like fanned and fermented. And you can't get it back in again. The only way that you can reduce this concern, that you can address this issue, is evidentially. Which is why I have a very odd question for you this morning. Or at least I have a very normal and obvious question for you this morning, born of a very odd sensation. One that I may regret by 10:30, but I'm going to tell you now. I think it might work. So if I'd gone out of bed on the wrong side, I'd be sitting here saying none of it matters. Because you get a little bit distracted, you get a little bit hypnotised by the sort of racists that turned up on the hate march that Stephen Yaxley Lennon led this weekend, and you think they represent everybody who's concerned about immigration. This might be my sweet summer child naivety kicking in once again, but I'd rather be naive than nasty. And people who have been fed an unleavened diet of anti-immigration rhetoric, which had to happen for Brexit to occur. People who have been fed an unleavened diet, that genie of bigotry and racism that was let out of the bottle in 2016. You can't get it back in the bottle. You're going to need a better bottle. And I still believe that my fellow Brit is capable of responding rationally to this news. Not the first time it happens. Not the first time it happens. But the trend, the movement. So, I mean, I'll go to my inbox and show you the kind of people who we have allowed to dominate the discourse, the kind of people that we sometimes think represent all of the people who profess concern about racism. It's Tamara in Telford territory, this, a wonderful woman that we took a call from a couple of years ago when I was attempting to identify the constituency of people who would actually respond to falling immigration numbers. So here's James. He's not one of those people. He's a nasty racist, and he writes, veterans on the street and illegal rapists in hotels, vile man. So he not only doesn't care about rapists who are white, or indeed about veterans on the street who he has never done anything at all to help, but he also hates the fact that immigration figures are coming down because his camouflage is being stolen. His ability to pretend that he's not a massive racist, I'm just very concerned about the numbers, is dissolving in front of him. So he's getting cross with me. He's shooting your friendly neighbourhood messenger. And Farage will be furious as well. So much so that he will lie, even to Nick Robinson of the BBC, unchallenged and unchecked, about why these figures are plummeting. He will lie through his nicotine-stained teeth about net migration being a result of the number of people leaving, when it categorically, obviously, evidentially and numerically isn't. The numbers are coming down. That's why he started targeting disabled people and people who are between jobs and children with ADHD. What are we going to attack next? We haven't got anything constructive to offer this country. We've just got to give people like James, the one who texted James O'Brien this morning about rapists, we've just got to give him something else to pretend he's furious about so that he doesn't have to admit that he's a massive, thick racist. And I refuse to believe that all the people drawn to, quotes, concerns, end quotes, about immigration are thick racists. It can't be true. It's statistically impossible. My personal calculation would be 10% of the population is basically decent, inherently and incredibly decent. And I'm going to use the word we. You can hate me for that if you want, that's fine. We would go to the gallows in defence of a population under the jackboot of the Nazis. But it's only 10% of the population that would do that. 10% of the population will sign up to the Nazis before the announcement has even finished. They will be stealing from their Jewish neighbours. They will be reporting their Muslim work colleagues to the authorities. They would literally, 10% of the population, James being a case in point, my texter this morning, and I'll get more, I'll keep an eye out for them. They will absolutely love it. The minute it's announced, the minute the swastika is raised in Trafalgar Square, they will be goose-stepping from here to Greggs and back. That's not fair on Greggs. Other pastries are available. 10% will go to the gallows to resist it. 10% will sign up. 80% of the population is just going to sort of sit there. Some of them might sign up. Some of them might develop enthusiasm. Some of them might quietly resist, but they're not going to risk their lives to do it. Some of them may just keep their heads down and hope that things return to normal. You can see it happening in the United States of America right now, although stretches the 10% figure slightly, and I don't know who the ones are that would resist it by and up to the point of going to the gallows. But here's another one. So here's Ian. This is quite interesting as well, because these people, these racists, are absolutely banjaxed by the actual figures. Because that's the thing that they've been given by Brexit, the ability to pretend that they're not racist, they're just really concerned about the numbers. And I think we're better than that. So the argument was lost, okay? And immigration coming down was a priority for everybody except the Liberal Democrats and the Greens. Okay? Everybody, pretty much. So Labour has adopted that. And Labour has pledged to bring down the immigration numbers spectacularly. And they are. They are. In the 12 months to December 2025, the number of people entering a country, minus the number of people who leave, stood at about 171,000. A fall of almost 800,000 from where it was just 3 years ago. That's absolutely extraordinary. And for the record, I don't think it's over yet. I think it will continue to fall. So, is it going to work? Is it going to work? Here's another racist. You've made the label racist meaningless, which is what all racists say. This is Ian getting in touch to prove that he's a racist. You've made the label racist meaningless. We don't care, lol. I spent my entire life texting radio presenters who've just made points that I don't care at all about, Ian. You irredeemable flump. It's an all-time record. It was forced upon us. It's not enough. They're coming. So you see, he's got it. He's furious. They're coming down. Damn! All that's left is racism. But I can't be a racist. You've made the label meaningless. So ignore people like Ian, ignore people like James, ignore your racist uncle or your Uncle Keith on Facebook. Think about this curious, this unidentified, this almost unknowable constituency of countrymen and women who are going to respond positively to the news that immigration is plummeting because they have been persuaded, through no fault of their own, look at the effort that's gone into it, that immigration is a bad thing, and the lower it is, the better. So if it stands at, as it did just 3 years ago, 944,000, and your emotional calibrator, your emotional meter responds to a figure of 944,000 by going up to 8 or 9 on the anger scale, then by all the laws of logic, it should come down to 2 or 3 when the figure stands at 193,000, unless you're racist like Ian and James. If you're not racist and you're genuinely concerned about the numbers, if 944,000 makes you vote for Farage, then 193,000 should effectively involve you giving your head a bit of a wobble and remembering what's best for the country. And I want you to tell me now whether or not it's going to make any difference at all. Because at 20 minutes past 10, I actually think it is. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. I actually think it's going to matter. I refuse to believe that our population is so pig-headed and so poorly served by media. I derive optimism from what's happened in Hungary, where they managed to control everything. The same forces that have turned immigration into a toxic issue in this country, aided and abetted actually by money paid directly to them by the Hungarian government under Viktor Orban. More on that in my next book. But I refuse to believe that this population is so pig-headed and so poorly served by the media and the political class that they have become immune to numbers, that they have actually become immune to statistics. So for every Neanderthal claiming that the figures aren't real or that it's all been manipulated, for every Neanderthal like that, drawn to a far-right party, I reckon there are 10 people that are susceptible to reason, that are susceptible to statistics, that are susceptible to arithmetic and numbers. And I hope today you're going to agree with me. But you are, of course, not just welcome, but encouraged not to. Immigration is plummeting. Is it going to make any difference whatsoever to the national conversation about immigration and the fortunes of the government that is delivering these apparently deeply desired numbers? That's what I want you to tell me. The numbers are coming down at a rate that even, I mean, I don't know who would actually dream of it, because the racist politicians don't want immigration to come down. It robs them of their most potent weapon. Most members of Labour are uncomfortable with this direction of travel. Well, not actually most, but a lot of Labour parliamentarians are uncomfortable with this direction of traffic, but it is giving the people what they want. If you give the people what they want, will they thank you for it, when what you're giving them is plummeting immigration? Plummeting, coming down from just shy of 1 million to under 200,000 in the space of 3 years, halved in 1 year. Is it going to make a difference? And again, I've said this a few times lately, we've been getting some amazing calls from people who've never phoned me before. And so if this is an issue that you are actually animated by, exercised by, if I've managed to get the question right today, and you're sort of thinking, do you know what, it's not the kind of thing I normally do, but I do actually have thoughts on this, then I'd really love to hear from you today. Because I don't feel optimistic very often, and it's a bit sick to feel optimistic about something that you don't actually want or approve of. But I want my country to go back to a place where discourse is not dominated by division. And I don't think it can while these numbers are high. I think we failed. I think we lost. I think we lost. I don't know whether we could ever have won if we'd done things differently, but we lost. The racists are winning. But the pieces that we play with, the people that we pursue and the people that we want to persuade, they're not racist. So it's the anti-racist versus the racist, and the racist is winning because the numbers are so high. Is this going to change the picture or not? Hit the numbers now. You will get through. 0345 6060 973. The numbers are plummeting. Will the toxicity diminish accordingly?
James O'Brien on LBC.
25 minutes after 10, and of course some of the answers are obvious, but it's not them I'm thinking about. It's not the various racists congregating in London at the weekend who want to deport all Muslims, regardless of whether they've won Olympic gold medals for this country or 3 times been elected mayor of our capital. Of course they are insatiable. Their bigotries know no bounds, and of course they have made fortunes harvesting the gullibility and the idiocy of their followers. And of course, people will still point at the small boats and shout, despite the fact that they make up about 5% of the overall numbers. And crucially, of course, they exist only because right-wing politicians shut down safe and legal routes. But we've lost all those arguments. None of that matters. People see a figure like 944,000 people net migration in 2023, and they get cross. So are they going to be less cross now that that figure stands at 193,000 and falling? Malcolm is in Anglesey Brook. How delightful. Malcolm, what would you like to say?
James, morning. Nice to speak to you. Last time we spoke, I was in Maroondale, Anglesey, and we talked about pub business rates.
Right. Well, this is a bit different.
It is, and I'll not be as jokey as I was then. I share some of your optimism.
It's a weird kind of optimism that something I don't want to happen is the lesser of two evils, if you like, because it will deliver something that I do want to happen.
Fair point. I'm thinking. One of the advantages of having moved back to Cheshire is I'm going to be able to do a bit of active campaigning in Makerfield, which isn't too far away.
Right, don't say anything else, because we're now in Purda. Good God, I mean, you can't see it coming from a mile away. So be careful. We're now in Purda for that by-election. So don't say anything that might involve me getting into trouble, Malcolm. Carry on.
Absolutely. But I mean, the timing. All I was going to say on that.
No. Don't say anything. I mean, what do I have to do? Shout? Don't say anything about it, even if it's entirely innocuous, because I'm paranoid and scared.
The last thing I'd like you to do is shout.
Thank you.
The two points I was going to make was, first of all, the right are going to go even harder on the small boats thing.
Yes.
Because
there's not going to be much left. There's not going to be much left.
Well, exactly. Until I moved recently, I was working for an MP in her constituency office, and in an area in North Wales with very low immigration figures, and we had people contacting us who were convinced that not only were more than half of immigrants coming over illegally, but that they were being given mobile phones and put to the top of the local housing list.
I'm shocked.
And when we were trying to persuade them that wasn't the case, they said, but this is what I've been told. Somebody I respect told me in the pub. Somebody I respect told me in the post office. Somebody who was on the local council was telling me in the street. So they're going to go harder on that.
But this has always been true. And the years I was doing this job before racism was normalised again, even encouraged, and before immigration was toxified so completely, those people always existed. One of the first calls I took on this programme, 100 years ago now, was from a woman who was adamant that immigrants were being given shops in South London. You just turn up, tell them you're an immigrant, and they'll give you the keys to a shop. That was what she believed. At 10 shops in a row, they were all going to go to it. And you still see it now. You still see people filming themselves on building sites, claiming that they're all going to be given to immigrants. And this is why it's a very bittersweet optimism, and you may well be chipping away at it. But the context in which those things happen has to change when the numbers come down by almost 1 million.
I think for a number of people it does.
Yes.
But equally, when you were first taking those calls, some of those people were dismissed by the majority of your listeners as a bit flaky. The cumulative effect of all this stuff over the last number of years has meant that I think what was, a sort of swivel-eyed fringe has grown to some extent. And those people, are convinced of the views. And the other route, of course, the right are going, is to say, well, all right, immigration may be coming down, but it's been far too big for too long, and therefore the only cure for that is deportation. You've had Rupert Lowe say there are very few problems in this country that cannot be eased by mass deportation. And you've got Zia Youssef saying, well, we're going to build deportation camps, obviously not quite clear where they're going to deport people to, in green constituencies. And Farage not rowing back.
Sometimes you forget, don't you, how vile everything has become. No, I know.
2 weeks ago. And Farage himself is not saying that explicitly.
But something has to change. The numbers have to change something, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, they will.
Obviously, the people who've got nothing else but race baiting are going to carry on race baiting. They always have. I think that Yaxley Lennon is quite a good example, just desperately trying to make money out of racism effectively. And for years, it was pathetic and ridiculous. And then the tectonic plates shifted. International organisations, figures like Elon Musk, they love the racism. They start pouring money and his influence grows. But what grows can shrink again. And one of the biggest drivers of growth among people who are not vile will be what we used to call legitimate concerns about the numbers. So if the numbers come down and the conversation doesn't change, then they were all horrible racists all along.
I think that's entirely fair, but and to just underpin your optimism a bit, of course, the Robinson's March in London last weekend, by all accounts, the numbers were down by over 50% from the last time you tried it.
Yes, I don't like to read too much into that, but it's certainly not portrayable as good news, although one imagines that people were lying about it. And there it is. Malcolm, very rational, very calm, very coolly, addressing my optimism with a very with a friendly but cynical eye. I can't help who I am. I believe the best of people until I'm given no choice but to believe the worst of them. So there are plenty of people I can believe the worst of because they keep showing me who they are. In Nigel Farage's case, they've been doing it since their school days, according to people who were at school with him. And I can't reach the people who don't care about that, who profess to care about anti-Semitism while intending to vote for a man who joked about gas chambers and claimed that Hitler was right while he was still in the sixth form, according to people in the sixth form with him, and who takes £5 million from foreign billionaires without thinking he should tell his supporters or indeed anybody else about it, including his colleagues. So I can't reach those people, but I refuse to believe that the average British person concerned about immigration will continue to be furiously concerned about immigration when immigration plummets. Prove me wrong. 0345 6060 973. Here's Dominic Ellis with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
35 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we report the bittersweet news that immigration is falling at a rate of knots, and we wonder whether the people who definitely aren't racists but are very concerned about immigration will now be considerably less concerned. It's a genuine question. And coming up a little later this hour, Bill Browder will join us with his view, one of the most tireless campaigners against Vladimir Putin and in favour of sanctions against the hideous, murderous regime led by the man that Nigel Farage admires most in the world. I want his take on what has happened with regard to that jet fuel situation and the apparent easing of sanctions by the current government. And I have a feeling it won't be very pleasant hearing for the current government, but let's wait and see. Back to the phones. Holly is in Newcastle. Holly, what would you like to say?
Hiya, James. Big fan, dead chuffed to speak to you. So I'm trying to kind of pull together my thoughts on all of this. I'm very much like you. I've got optimism, but I've also got massive bouts of optimism fatigue because we've been through this a million times.
It's the hope that gets you, Holly, not the despair.
I know. So I keep very, very much abreast of the American politics for my sins, and I used to work in psychology, and I feel like a lot of things with the way the political spectrum is coming in the whole world at the moment is because of tribalism. And what's really concerning me about this latest thing is that I feel like the enemy has been shifted from the small boats and the immigrants to the left in general.
Yes.
And what might concern me is that because things aren't fundamentally really getting better for the average man on the street, I feel like the animosity is still going to be there towards the left in general.
Well, there was a lorry driver shouting abuse at Rachel Reeves I can see why it made the news, but goodness me, it's a mark of a civilizational decline, isn't it, when things like that are greeted with enthusiasm by some people in public life?
Yeah, and then it will be, we've seen it, it's tribalism, it's us versus them, it's differences, it's otherisms, and we know right-wing politics is massively spurned by fear, so it's
And hate. I mean, fear is generous. Fear is generous. I mean, Yoda got it right, didn't he? Is it anger leads to fear? Well, whatever. But hate is always at the end of the equation. Did you see the footage from the hate march on Sunday?
Yes.
Of the woman who was removed from the crowd because she looked like she'd read a book?
Oh, God, no, I didn't see that one.
It was quite incredible. It was a woman in glasses, and the other members of the crowd started alerting security that she was dodgy because she looked... this is an extraordinary thing to say, but she looked relatively educated. And you hear a woman shouting in the background, she looks like a lefty. So I hate to prove your point with recent events, but I think I just did.
Me.
Yeah, of course.
And it's the thing about Donald Trump can say. What also concerns me, my other point was that they'll continue to blame it. They'll say but it's what's already happened.
But this is Tamara in Telford territory, isn't it? Of course those people exist. Of course there are people in a crowd who will take against someone who looks like they've read a book in their life. Of course you will have Farage desperately trying to pretend that this is not terrible news for the racists, even though it's bad news for the country. It's good news for people who want the conversation to change. You just don't know how many of them there are. That's the problem. No. Of course the rump exists. They always did. They were ringing me 20 years ago to tell me that immigrants all got given shops and that Hounslow smelt of curry. I remember the calls as if they were yesterday, but they were always there. What they've done since Brexit is co-opt millions of other people, and I just wonder whether they now begin to return to a kinder, happier place. And I hope so.
I really hope so.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Holly, hate leads to suffering. Speaking of which, I have for you, I think, one of the finest examples of what I'm talking about, which had temporarily slipped my mind, but it's been refreshed by something in the news today. Stay tuned. Have we got two Hollies? Has that ever happened before? From Holly to Holly? It's not like a massively common name. We should play Jingle Bells or something like that. Get me an Ivy, will you, on line 3. 2 Hollies and an Ivy. This one's in Derby. Holly, from Newcastle to Derby, what would you like to say?
Hello, my love.
Hello, Holly. Holly too.
Yes, Holly too. I don't think people are going to care. I think the people that care about immigration are just racist, and I think
they're not all racist. They can't be. It's not possible statistically. You see a figure like 944,000. It's enormous. It bothers you. Doesn't make you a racist.
I think there's going to be a large portion of people that are just not going to care. Yeah. They're going to go, oh, well, even if it was 10 people coming into the country every year, there are going to be a group of people that go, yeah, well, we don't want black and brown people in this country. We don't want Muslims or Islam screaming, Allah, 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 who's Allah? God, babe, that's who Allah is. Yeah. I don't think it's going to matter to those people that go to marches.
This is, oh God, I'm sounding like a... I don't know, Pollyanna, aren't I? I keep saying that these people have always existed. They've just managed to infect lots of other people. I believe there is an antidote. And unfortunately, the antidote is it involves economic damage. We just can't put a number on it, Holly. There's bound to be one person going, oh, well, that's good news. I don't need to worry about immigration anymore.
There's definitely going to be. There's definitely going to be people that turn around and go, oh, okay, this is great, brilliant, or I maybe won't have to follow, but I don't think there's going to be a lot. I think there's the people that are drawn to people like Nigel Farage and all the other people in the right-wing politics. It's just drawn from racism. It's not drawn from anything else. It's not drawn from worrying about the country, the state of the economy. No, it's purely racism. They don't want black and brown people in this country because they think this country has been white. And
then they will lie because they have to lie about these numbers, or they'll claim because figures of people leaving the country who were British born are relatively steady and relatively high. They'll claim that rather than that being evidence of people fleeing the bin fire that they helped to create, it's somehow evidence of millionaires and entrepreneurs leaving the country, and that therefore these are not numbers that people who were crying for immigration to come down should actually celebrate. It's as if they're about to say, if they haven't already, oh yeah, I mean, when we said immigration had to come down, we didn't mean like that. We didn't mean, because they're all so disingenuous, so dissembling, and so dishonest. Evidence this.
Just look at the net migration numbers. Oh, isn't it good? Net migration's coming down. Do you know why? There's an exodus. There is now an exodus. Those that are of a situation and a financial position that they're fortunate enough to have the choice are now fleeing the country in numbers. Actually, even bigger numbers than we saw back in the late 1970s when the brain drain was at its height.
It's a simple sum. You take away the people leaving from the people coming, and you get net migration, and the people are coming. The numbers are absolutely plummeting. The people leaving, roughly the same. EU nationals, you've got about 278,000. Non-EU nationals leaving the UK. EU nationals, about 118,000. Brits, about 240,000. But the number of people coming in, that's falling at a rate of knots. And he lied about it. That was to Nick Robinson on the BBC. I don't know whether the complaints about that have prompted any form of apology or correction, but he will continue to lie about it because he can't handle the truth. The truth robs him of his biggest weapon, which is why he's started attacking the disabled and people who are out of work, because immigration is plummeting. Even he recognises it's going to change his core support, but I'm not convinced that you agree at this point. We're too battered, aren't we? We're too cynical, perhaps. We've seen too much evidence of people voting to hurt themselves by hurting others. Or well, there's two types, isn't there? You either vote to hurt others and don't care that it hurts you. I remember those calls. That was, I'm voting for Brexit even though it's going to make my children poorer, because we've got to get rid of all the foreigners. So I don't care if it hurts me and mine. It's going to hurt them over there even more, so I love it. Or you don't realise it's going to hurt you. You're just so seduced and intoxicated by the idea of hurting them, which is why the economic damage caused by eradicating immigration entirely will be a price that everybody has to pay, regardless of whether you're in favour of these policies or not. And that, as quite a few of you have pointed out to me, is what Labour are doing. I mean, that is the platform effectively upon which they fought the disastrous council elections. My optimism, for want of a better word, is built upon the idea that these figures will percolate through the population and begin to make a difference. But I could, of course, be wrong. Speaking of the current government, yesterday's PMQs saw Kemi Badenoch try to make hay out of a reported relaxing of sanctions on Vladimir Putin's Russia. I said to you at the time I wasn't following entirely the facts. It looks very, very ugly to me, not least because the EU haven't done it. But I know a man who will be able to give us absolute chapter and verse on what is going on and what it means, and I'll be talking to him after this.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 10:48. It featured in PMQs yesterday, and it features in much of the media today. I'm not lazy, of course, but sometimes you don't have the knowledge or the understanding to dig into every single subject as deeply as you can. So for me, the fact that Kyiv had expressed deep disappointment with the UK after it was announced that we would be easing sanctions on Russian oil and gas was enough for me to conclude that this was pretty bad news. Volodymyr Zelensky saying last night, of course, our team has been in contact with the UK today. The issue of sanctions is always a very sensitive one, and there has been much discussion in the media and among politicians. This as Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer seek to reassure Ukraine that this temporary import of Russian oil and jet fuel was only one element of a tougher overall sanctions package. No civilian in this country, or possibly the world, has done more to pursue a programme of sanctions against Vladimir Putin's regime, and his name is Sir Bill Browder, the anti-corruption campaigner and head of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign, and also, as you probably know, a good friend of mine. So we turn to him, because he will be across this like few others. And we begin by asking what your immediate reaction to this news was, Bill.
The same as Kiev's reaction, which is very negative. I mean, here you've got a situation which is, how does Putin afford to continue to fight this war after 4 years? And the answer is because of oil. and oil products and all the money that comes from that. That's where he gets the money. And so the logic has been since the very beginning, how do we stop him from this invasion? We take away his money. How do we take away his money? By stopping his sale of oil. And so for the UK, who in theory is one of the biggest allies of Ukraine, to basically say to the Russians, oh, it's okay, you can sell your oil now, is the biggest stupidity. You can, it's unimaginable how stupid this is. We spend all this money helping Ukraine fight off the Russians, and now we're giving money to Putin to continue to kill Ukrainians. It just makes no sense. And I have to wonder what is behind this, who made this decision, where the pressure came from, because it just doesn't make sense on the surface.
Let me be the devil's advocate, if I may. My understanding is that the new legislation, which does affect a ramping up of broader sanctions, an expansion of the sanctions programme, kicked in on Tuesday, but because of concerns caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the ongoing war in Iran, they've just put a 3-month pause on the jet fuel and refined diesel element of it, as well as the LNG. So they've sort of said, turn the tap off slowly. Don't cut the pipe tonight.
Well, but let's just look at this. So at the moment, Russia produces oil. They produce jet fuel, or they sell oil to people who make jet fuel. And so then the question is, what happens to that stuff? And when it's under sanctions, it means that Russia just gets a lower price. It's not as if they don't sell their stuff. So what happens when you lift sanctions, it's not as if the supply all of a sudden comes about that you wouldn't have otherwise. It just means that Russia gets more money and other people get less money. It's just a redistribution of the profit in this chain of oil sales. And so the idea that somehow this is going to lead to getting rid of jet fuel shortages is just nonsense. It just means that Russia gets more money. And I'll tell you something else which is interesting, which is that Vladimir Zelensky is watching all this stuff, and he's getting pretty frustrated because we're all talking about sanctions and then not really doing it, or doing it halfway, or lifting sanctions. And so you know what he's doing about this whole oil business? He's sending his drones into Russia and blowing up their oil refineries. And so he's imposing his own sanctions because, we are so fickle and half-hearted about doing our sanctions. And that is having an effect. And Vladimir Putin is now hiding in his bunker and begging for the Ukrainians not to bomb his parades and so on and so forth.
I mean, the licenses last for 3 months. We could be sitting here in 3 months' time feeling a little bit more sanguine and philosophical about things.
Well, the U.S. were the first people to do this whole sanctions removal. This is what happened at the beginning of the Iran war. Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, quote, temporarily lifted sanctions for 1 month. 1 month went by, and then he temporarily lifted sanctions for a second month. That second month went by, and he just lifted sanctions for a third month. And so when you open up this Pandora's box, this is what you end up. And I just have to think that this 3-month thing is going to turn into 6 months, and every month Putin gets more money.
Well, we will join you in keeping a very close eye on that particular issue. I wonder whether you've been on the phone at all in the last 24 hours. You're a knight of the realm now, Sir Bill. You are a man of influence. Have you brought your expertise and unhappiness to bear upon the people making these decisions?
Well, I have, but it makes more of a difference for me coming on your show to express my displeasure than it does with a private phone call.
Well, to that point then, for people listening, I wouldn't force them through the mangle of this particular question, but if they were given a choice between buying refined jet fuel from India that has been refined from oil that came out of Russia, or cancelling their summer holiday, some people may be a little bit torn on that. Is that an oversimplistic analysis?
It wouldn't happen. It's not as if there's no jet fuel. It's just a question of who gets the money for that jet fuel. It's not like all of a sudden by lifting the sanctions, you can go on your summer holiday. By lifting the sanctions, it just means that Russia can do more bombing and gets more money from it. And in fact, if the Indians are the ones who are being penalized because the Russian oil then comes in at a higher price. It's not as if there's no oil or jet fuel available for summer holidays because of this move.
So just to clarify finally then, I mean, you are obviously, for clear reasons, in favour of an immediate cessation of this this commerce, this business, but it's not. They're bringing in a ban. they're just pausing it for 3 months. It's not as if there was a ban in place previously that is now being lifted. It's an easing of sanctions that were incoming, not an easing of sanctions that were in place.
However you want to describe it, we should be cutting off Russia's access to money in the world, because if we don't, then we end up in a situation where we're going to have to continue paying for Ukrainians. More people will die. And by the way, the Russians are not just going after Ukraine. They're busy buzzing. There was an incident yesterday where an RAF jet nearly crashed into a Russian military jet over the Black Sea. I mean, this is a day-by-day, what I would call almost open war with Russia. They are the enemy. They are the adversary. And to do anything that's not completely harsh to the Russians is basically leaving ourselves wide open to God knows what in the future.
Indeed. And I think Lithuanian politicians were evacuated yesterday to an underground shelter after a drone violated their country's airspace. While I have you, Bill, what's the bigger picture sanctions-wise? Are we seeing meaningful intervention from Western countries? I suppose the EU most obviously, the United States unlikely to lead the way under the current regime. Are sanctions having any effect at all on Vladimir Putin's war machine?
Well, I think the sanctions generally are having a big effect on his war machine. I mean, he's suffering. He's been suffering. But the one big place where he continues to get his money from is oil. And I was working on a big project for about the last year, trying to get sanctions imposed on the 8 oil refineries which buy 80% of Russia's oil. Because if I had succeeded in that, then we would have been in a situation where Russia would have effectively gotten about 75% less money that they would normally get, and then they would probably be out of business and unable to conduct the war. My work was going very well until the moment that the U.S., Israel, Iran war started. And at that moment, oil became a scarce commodity, and any thoughts about limiting anything about the oil was thrown out the window. I mean, I think that Putin is suffering for sure. You can see it in all different ways. Probably the most interesting thing that's happening right now is that he's so paranoid that he's turned off the internet in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And most people in Russia didn't care about the war. They were all like, it's not our problem as long as we live comfortably and fine. And all of a sudden, when they're not with that, when they don't have their internet, they're all squeaking and screaming as if the world is coming to an end. And so finally, Putin is seeing what it feels like for normal Russians to be upset. Now, they're not upset about Ukrainians being killed every day, civilians being killed. They're only upset about not having internet, but at least the war is coming home to them.
Bill Browder, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. So Bill, as I told you, is an anti-corruption campaigner and head of the Global Magnitsky Justice Campaign. So it is clearer now that this is not quite what Kemi Badenoch claimed in Parliament yesterday. It is a postponement of an introduction, but as Bill just made crystal clear, in his view, it shouldn't have been postponed at all, and certainly any money raised could be and would be used by Vladimir Putin to fund his war in Ukraine. And B, crucially, this 3-month hiatus is something you need to keep a very, very close eye on, because if it doesn't expire immediately after 3 months, then the situation gets worse and worse and worse. I now actually fully understand that issue, which I didn't when it came up in PMQs yesterday, and which I suspect Kemi Badenoch still doesn't. It's coming up to 11 o'clock. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Absolutely extraordinary scenes from Israel overnight, where a far-right minister filmed himself abusing British citizens who had been illegally arrested. I'm going to say that again. A far-right Israeli minister who remains in post filmed himself viciously abusing British citizens, bound and handcuffed, who had been arrested illegally in international... It's not even an arrest, is it? They've been kidnapped in international waters. And I have absolutely no idea why he did it.
James O'Brien on LBC.
8 minutes after 11 is the time. 11:30 today, we will speak to the daughter of a man caught up in that absolute horror show in Israel yesterday, when the far-right Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir filmed himself abusing British and Irish and many other citizens who had been effectively kidnapped in international waters by Israeli forces. And I mean, it's Mystery Hour today, which rarely makes me think, oh, rats, I wish we had 3 hours of the show. But today I would quite like to talk about that for an hour, I'm going to stick with the immigration for now because I think it's the biggest story in our town, in this country. And then that gives you a chance to watch this footage. I'll play you a little bit of it now, but I do think that you need to see it to fully understand the absolute horror of what you are hearing. Because these are British people with their hands bound on their hands and knees, and Irish people, peace activists, people seeking to, well, depending on which way you look at it, either to take aid into the Gaza Strip or to prove how draconian and quite possibly illegal Israel's attempts to stop them from doing so would be. I mean, to be fair, history teaches us that in some ways they're lucky to be alive. As it is, they were kidnapped in international waters, transported back to Israel, bound and forced to kneel in the presence of this man.
Free Palestine! שקט!
ברוכים הבאים לישראל, אנחנו בעלי הבית. ישראל חי. עם ישראל חי. לא להתרגש מהצעקות שלהם, לא להתרגש.
So that's the security minister, still in post. So some of the more prominent members of the Israeli regime will have condemned him. But what are words when he remains in his political position, essentially taunting people who are peace activists dedicated to highlighting the horrors that people in Gaza are still exposed to. Even the US ambassador to Israel managed to condemn this behaviour as despicable, claiming that it betrayed the dignity of his nation. No doubt Mike Huckabee will be facing accusations of anti-Semitism in approximately 10 seconds. So I want you to see the footage before we talk about it. And what I want you to do next is, A, stay tuned for the interview with Clare Azzougarh, whose father is among those bound and abused by the Israeli minister, and B, return your attention to that question that understandably dominates our news agenda and indeed our news headlines, because it's what they said they wanted. It's what they said they wanted. I have spent probably the best part of a decade hearing people absolutely insist, with a small pause during the pandemic when nobody could get in or out of the country, hearing people insist quite furiously, or let me say passionately, that the overall immigration numbers were the single most significant element of our politics. It was Brexit that happened because of it, because of the promise from people like Farage and Rees-Mogg and Johnson and the rest of them that Brexit would bring down these unbearable and unsustainable numbers. And I didn't understand then why people cared so much about it. It was the demonisation of Romanian lorry drivers. You wouldn't want to live next door to Romanians, I think, was one of Farage's big plays at the time. And Johnson sort of tacked himself half-heartedly to that juggernaut of bile and bigotry. And it didn't get dispensed with. Brexit taught them nothing. Immigration rocketed as a consequence of Brexit because all of the people who needed to be replaced couldn't be tempted to come here unless they were allowed to bring family members with them. And that, of course, was all on Boris Johnson. But it was caused by Nigel Farage and his mates, all of whom take precisely zero responsibility for any of it, up to and including signing up some of the worst offenders from those Conservative administrations to join his new outfit. But this is the point, isn't it? Everybody, well, we all know somebody who is absolutely adamant they just want the numbers to come down. They just want the numbers have to. It's unsustainable. It's uncontrolled immigration, which was never accurate, but it doesn't matter. That's another battle that we lost. The battle of the words, the meaning of the words. What does uncontrolled mean? Well, anyone could come here whenever they want and do whatever they want. It was never true. If you were in a country with whom we had a treaty that involved freedom of movement because we were all members of the same bloc, then yes, it was relatively uncontrolled. But there were still freedoms under European Union membership to limit access to the welfare state or to have requirements in place for relocating. Successive British governments, all Conservative, chose not to implement them. But again, we lost that battle. We lost all the battles. Those of us with facts on our side, pathetic old facts. You can prove anything with facts, James, as a caller literally said to me during the Brexit years. And we lost the battle of the facts to the stoker of the feelings. So why am I still optimistic that these facts might matter? Why? Why am I still optimistic? Because the alternative is too bleak to contemplate, right? To actually believe that we're all turning into Goneril and Regan in King Lear and pointing out that 100 is too many, but so is 50, and actually so is 20. Actually, why do we even need one? Which is a slight paraphrasing of, what is it, probably Act 4, Scene 2? I don't know, you'd have to check. Why do we even need one? And then you get the hate march on the weekend when they were calling. I mean, imagine if, and I don't always think this is helpful, but sometimes it is, because some people, I think, need a little bit of help seeing what is happening to one part of the population by imagining it happening to another. So imagine if the things that were said about Muslims on Stephen Yaxley Lennon's hate march this weekend were said about British Jews, already facing epic increases in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as a direct consequence of the rhetoric that's linked to immigration, and other things in both cases, of course. But imagine if anybody were speaking publicly. Conservatives can't condemn them because Nick Timothy has already called for them to be banned from praying in public. Again, imagine if that were to happen to Catholics or to Jews in this country, for a senior Conservative politician to call for a ban on public prayer for a very specific and single religion. It's hideous, absolutely hideous. And I refuse to accept that the entire portion of the population that has expressed concerns about immigration are part of the same group that wants to ban praying in public for Muslims or Jews or Catholics or whichever religion you prefer. At the moment, it's Muslims that are in the firing line, but it never stops there, as history has taught us. I refuse to believe that everybody bothered by a figure like 944,000 is going to be entirely unmoved by the decline, the plummeting of that figure to just shy of 200,000. It's an extraordinary drop. If it was net migration that you cared about, how can you not care about this? How can you not care about this? And that's why I want you to tell me, very simply, I got a few phone lines free now for the first time since 10 o'clock this morning. Very, very simply, do you think it will make any difference? Optimists particularly welcome, but pessimists necessary to the conversation. Do you think it will make any difference? I tell you some things for a fact. Farage will lie about it and make claims that are not true. Of course he will. And if he's doing it with Nick Robinson on the BBC, he won't even get challenged. But that's like saying the sun will come up tomorrow. Nigel Farage will lie. What about people who are not fundamentally dishonest? People who do actually think that immigration has been a net negative to this country and who will welcome the news that it's falling. Wrongly, in my view. Wrongly, of course, in my view. But that battle has been lost. We lost all the battles. Lost the Brexit battle. Lost the battle over what immigration really represents and what it really means. Lost the battle over what controlled and uncontrolled mean. Lost the battle over freedom of movement being a wonderful thing for everybody lucky enough to be signed up to it, for every country lucky enough to be signed up to it. Lost the battle about the relationship, still losing the battle about the relationship between a mobile workforce and economic growth and the trade-offs, if you do care about such things, between freedom of goods and freedom of movement of goods and freedom of movement of people. We lost all those battles. Are we going to lose this one as well? Because this isn't even a battle that we wanted to have or win. It's a battlefield that we never wanted to be on. Okay, all right, the battlefield now is defined by the fact that the country thinks immigration is too high. That's agreed, right? You might not like it. That's what Labour has built its policy platform on. Immigration is too high. So they've brought it down a lot. Will it make any difference at all to public discourse, to your racist uncle's Facebook page, or to your concerned, persuaded citizen, friend, family member? Will it make any difference to you? You have insisted for years that immigration has to come down, and now it is. Is it possible for the things inside you to shift? Is anything going to change? I mean, half the country, I can tell you, thinks it's going up when it's actually going down. That was a story that was published in expectation of today's figure, but not directly linked to it. And it probably tallies with your personal experience. It probably tallies with the conversations that you have with the people in your life. It's coming down, but everybody, or a significant part of the population, are absolutely convinced that it's going up. Now, I think that will change. Voters believe net migration is rising despite figures dropping sharply. One newspaper reports this morning. People mistakenly believe net migration is rising in Britain despite figures dropping to their lowest level in years. And no prizes for guessing which party is most, or supporters of which party are most likely to be most wrong about it. But Labour stands at 41%. 41% of Labour supporters think that net migration was higher in 25 than 24, despite the fact that it plummeted by almost half. Might do a Y on that as well. How do you turn that oil tanker around? Do you need the racists, who are so popular at the moment, to start telling the truth about immigration for the people who have been brainwashed by the racists to start understanding the truth about immigration? There's no point me saying it. Oh, you would say that, wouldn't you? You look like you read a book once. We don't like you. Stone him and his flipping facts. There's no point me telling you that immigration has plummeted. Who would need to tell you? 30p Lee? I don't think he can count that high, to be honest with you. But still, who would make a difference? Why does half the population, why does a plurality of the population think that net migration is higher in 2025 than it was in 2024, despite the fact that it's fallen by almost half? Incredible. All the questions are there. 03456060973 is the number you need. Is it going to make any difference at all? And why is the British public so completely misinformed about the thing that many of them think is the biggest issue facing the country? How can you not know the facts about something you think is really, really important? That's a question for the ages.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 18 minutes after 11, and I don't think anyone was asking him about the immigration figures. People are still trying to ask him about the £5 million that he secretly accepted from a foreign-based billionaire who uses a Thai name to conduct his business and is set to make enormous sums of money if the Count of dodgy crypto himself, Nigel Farage, were ever to become Prime Minister. Here's the latest attempt to get the man who is fearless, dedicated to free speech and always happy to answer questions from anybody, being asked a fairly obvious and straightforward question.
Mr Farage, do you think that £5 million is going to cost you votes around here, Mr Farage?
What have you got to say about the £5 million that you didn't declare?
Oh, he's even given up shouting Bernard Manning now. Should send him the clip. Should we say that he could use it as a ringtone? He doesn't even bother shouting Bernard Manning anymore, just refuses to speak. This shortly after he pulled out of a public engagement, even after they'd insisted that any journalists attending submitted their questions in advance. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? I can't think why. Farhad is in Wolverhampton. Is it going to make any difference, Farhad?
Hi, James. No. As much as I really appreciate data, the numbers and everything gone behind it, has it ever made a difference? No. The things that reform offers, the new right offers, is what you said, demonisation. And what does that offer? It's an escape. It's relief.
But a population always contains 10, 15, maybe even as high as 20% of people in the sort of mindset that you describe, and it grows according to external factors. So a refugee crisis will always cause a rise in racism if you live in a country unlucky enough to have politicians who will put up breaking point posters on the same day that a woman is assassinated by a far-right terrorist. Economic difficulties will always cause an increase in racism if you're unlucky enough to live in a country populated by politicians who have helped cause economic difficulties by taking the country out of the biggest trading bloc in the world, but we'll blame it all on immigrants. That's always going to be true. But the outside factors change, and the numbers, that's one of the biggest outside factors driving the feelings. That's one of the biggest facts driving the feelings.
It's a big slogan out there. I come from a low economic postcode,
yeah,
a background where there's wonderful people from all walks of life and my interactions are fairly positive. You find common ground. It's an environment where we always belonged. We worked together. And then as I grew older, I find more and more questions coming my way about these things. And okay, so let's talk about your concerns. And it turns out, well, you're one of the good ones. You appreciate. I
don't mean you. You're all right.
Yeah. And I express myself as I'm an immigrant. My journey started on a boat. We came here. We learned that you appreciate the system. This system is so good, and it will give you everything that you want. But be good and respect it. And that's what we did. You fit in until very recently. And it's a question.
You can never do enough. It's a refrain I hear a lot from people who've been victims of racism, and it's why they reserve particular unhappiness for some of the right-wing politicians from ethnic minority backgrounds who seem to have gone all in on the kind of rhetoric that you describe. I can't judge them as a white person. What I can ask you, though, is whether or not I can dispel some of your pessimism by just painting a picture of a country where everybody knows the truth. So we no longer live in a country, and this can happen and will happen slowly. Voters believe net migration is rising despite figures dropping sharply. Let's fast forward 2 years and reverse that, and now voters know that net migration is dropping sharply, so they can no longer believe that it isn't, which takes away one of the main drivers of the opinions, the feelings that they have.
My understanding is from the people that have voted reform is they don't trust the politicians behind it themselves. They've never trusted the system. But again, it's relief that despite the actual politics and all the political issues, we get a relief from what we can visually see around us. It's an escape. We get to be different now, and we get to be proud of it.
And that's why I feel a little bit uncomfortable arguing with you about what for me is a sort of theoretical optimism, and for you is a pessimism born of lived experience. I mean, your brilliant observation, your sad contribution notwithstanding, I still don't believe that everybody who's put a cross in that particular box in a ballot is possessed of the kind of sensibilities that you describe. But there are obviously a hell of a lot more people in that category, or susceptible to those sensibilities than many of us realised. Largely because we grew up, I think I'm older than you, in a world where political correctness prevailed, in a world where we had successfully pushed that sort of vileness to the boundaries. So it still existed. You'd still get the calls on a radio station like this, and even occasionally you might hear a presenter engaging in some pretty vile sort of 1980s Sun newspaper style bigotry, but they would be complaining often about political correctness without ever explaining what it was. Every now and then something would slip through the net, and you'd realise they were complaining about not being allowed to be racist anymore. It's terrible. You're not allowed to be racist in this country anymore. And it was working. And then along came Brexit, and suddenly you were allowed to be racist again. I mean, don't take my word for it. Look at the facts. Look at the figures. Look at the research that the Trades Union Congress published last month about explicit and hideous racism in the workplace. Look at the Royal College of Nursing just yesterday, describing a jump of 86% in the last few years in blatant racist abuse, including by colleagues. It'd been given permission. People have been told they can be racist again. So the reason why we didn't realise how many people were susceptible to this was because they'd been shamed into keeping their views quiet. And then along came Uncle Nige and gave them permission to do it all in public again, including to nurses and doctors and anybody else, quite frankly, who they were minded to abuse, while simultaneously reassuring people like Farhad that we don't mean you. Thank you, mate. Alton's in Blackpool. Alton, what do you reckon?
I don't hold out much optimism.
Oh, it's just
really,
me then. This is a lonely show, Alton. And I mean, it's easy for me to say as well, of course, because I'm not on the sharp end of the abuse that these nurses and these TEC members are receiving. Go on, tell me why.
Well, I found out last week. My sister joyfully texted me to tell me she was going on the Britain, whatever the march was in London.
The hate march.
The hate march.
The
basically.
actual hate march, we could call it.
And I said, why are you going? Because I consider her an intelligent, we grew up middle class in Somerset. I considered us to be relatively intelligent people.
Yeah.
And she was like, Oh, well, I'm going on it because Let Women Speak are going to it, which I found kind of curious, which is something she's involved
Is that
with.
a trans thing?
Yes.
Okay.
And I went, but the people going are racist. They're not all racist. I said, well, they might all be racist, but there's a lot of racists going to be there.
It's been organised by racists. It's a racist enterprise. All of the people that they invited to speak are well-known racists and so vile in some cases that they were prohibited from coming into the country. Do you know why, Alton?
Is that why she went?
No. Do you know why they couldn't get into the country?
Not if I saw that they...
No, it's because we control our borders.
That is so true. I mean, she said, when we're told... So this is the thing about facts. She said, I'm fed up with being told we can't be proud of our country and fly our flag. And I went, but that's not true. And my neighbour's the same. The country's being taken over by Muslims. And when you try and give these people facts, whether it's my sister or my neighbour, they just look at you blankly. And then I was told that I watched too much BBC and I should read up on this more.
On Facebook, presumably. On
Facebook and YouTube, yeah. And it's and that's why even when these facts, immigration has fallen considerably, well, it'll all be lies, won't it? Which I guess has been slightly imported from America. But...
Well, and also imported from America, lies from precisely the same organisations that gave you the high numbers that you were very cross about previously. So you're just choosing. Yes. The source remains the same. You just choose which bits of their research you choose to believe and which bits you don't. And this is important. This is somebody who I would probably have seen as in potential Tamara in Telford territory, not someone who could be loosely dismissed as knuckle-dragging or uneducated or anything like that. This is someone who is as we discovered actually during some of the lockdown-era conspiracy theories, that class and education have very little to do with one's susceptibility to propaganda. And that's what's happened here.
Absolutely. I think the thing that really depressed me is I kind of always held in my head that there were these people out there, but they were, I think one of your other callers referred to swivel-eyed loons.
Yes.
But I don't consider my sister to be a swivel-eyed loon, so why is she doing that? I mean, it really upset me.
Because she believes what she's been told. She believes what she's been told. So that's why she's in the category that I'm talking about. She could be persuaded to believe something that's true just as easily as... she could be persuaded to believe something that's not true, but you don't sound hopeful. Is it more seductive? Is it more, being told that you're being prevented from doing something appeals to a part of our personality that is unreachable by the truth that you're not being told that at all. No one's been prevented from flying flags. I think it's obnoxious to fly them on lampposts outside the houses of people who really don't want them on lampposts outside their own houses. It's an incredible imposition. You're not allowed to be proud of your country. What the hell does that even mean? How do you reach these people?
I don't know. I tried arguing with her. I don't want to fall out over this. And I thought to myself, they're trying to divide us. I'm going to try not to fall out with her. And I'm going to try to continue to put facts before her. I said, these people want me dead. And she went, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm gay. And she went, oh, no. And then my neighbour's like, all the Muslims would want you. They throw you off buildings. And I went, no, that's exactly why some people are leaving some of those countries and seeking a better life.
That's a brilliant point.
There's some evil regimes out there. They don't want, Oh, sorry, I'm ranting now. But
welcome to my world on so many fronts, except, of course, I'm not gay, so I wouldn't be on the sharp end of what you described, but I'll tell you something you're going to really enjoy. Well, enjoy might not be the right word. Russell T Davies's new drama, I've had a sneak preview of it on Channel 4 at the end of this month, Tiptoe, addresses precisely the issues you've just described, and the fact that you start with one and it moves very quickly onto another persecuted part of society, and that no progress. This was quite depressing. It's why it's called Tiptoe. Actually, one of the reasons. No progress is permanent. All of these victories that we thought that we'd won on all fronts, whether it's gay rights or whether it's anti-racism, they're only ever temporary, aren't they? They're only ever temporary. There's always someone waiting to push back against them.
And that really scares me. It really does.
Of course it does. And it's why it's such a powerful piece of drama that I can't recommend highly enough. Alton, thank you. I hope you managed to build bridges with your sister, but of course bridges made of facts often feel a little bit useless compared to bridges made of feelings. I think that's what Starmer was addressing. It's really interesting that claim that point he made about stories being more effective than spreadsheets. I think he was actually critiquing discourse. He was pointing out that a story, even if it's not true, can get further into the public consciousness than a spreadsheet can. I guess the best recent example of that is a story that is true, not mattering to the British public, until it was turned into a story. When it was a spreadsheet, the post office scandal didn't really resonate anything like as much as it did when it was turned into a story. But if the story's not true, it's still more effective than a spreadsheet. The immigration figures today are a spreadsheet. The story that you're not allowed to fly a flag in this country or say that you're proud of it, that is a story. The immigration figures are a spreadsheet. The racist propaganda is a story. It's a seductive and persuasive story, which is why almost all of my callers are rejecting my optimism this morning that this latest spreadsheet, these latest numbers, will matter a jot. It is 11:31. Up next, the daughter of a man caught up in this horror show coming out of Israel overnight, where the far-right security minister filmed himself abusing, handcuffed, kneeling British citizens, Irish citizens, many, many other citizens who had been illegally kidnapped in international waters. Filmed himself abusing them is the element of it that I find most incomprehensible, and which we will talk about tomorrow when you've had a longer chance to actually watch the footage. We'll speak to the daughter of one of the men caught up in that after the very latest headlines with Dominic Ellis.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 11:35, and I think this touches slightly on the point that Alton in Blackpool just made about the world that we currently inhabit. So much of the misinformation and disinformation that seeps into our consciousness via social media, most obviously, but also via bent and biased media, is breathtaking. So much so these days that sometimes I think I see something and I think that can't be quite real. That can't be quite real. Something's happened. Something's that must be that can't. And that's where I was yesterday as I watched footage of the far-right Israeli security minister filming himself while abusing activists who had been kidnapped, I think, under international law would be the correct word to use, but I stand corrected if I've got that wrong, in international waters, hundreds of miles from the Israeli coast, as they made their way towards Gaza in the hope of delivering aid. And the footage was so gross, and the image of the detainees so hideous. They would look like Guantanamo Bay. They were bent double on the floor with their hands tied behind their backs. And quite possibly one of them was a 72-year-old British RAF veteran called Malcolm Ducker. We don't know for sure, of course, because they're not exactly bending over backwards to help the families of detainees or to reassure the families of detainees, but he was on the flotilla, and as far as his family know, he is in that room that Itamar Ben-Gvir treated like a sort of pantomime stage as he marched around boasting and making hideous statements. Malcolm's daughter, Clare Azzougarh, is with me now. And I begin, I suppose, Clare, by asking you whether, as you watched those hideous, almost unbelievable scenes unfolding, you caught any glimpses of your dad?
Hi, James. Well, at first I felt physically sick. And I actually had to go and talk to a friend first to counsel myself so I could actually face them. I knew he was there. And actually I later watched it back, and a friend's mother pointed out her son, who's a good friend of mine, Yassine Benjaloun. He's part of the Moroccan delegation. We saw him bent over double. And then not far from him, I saw my father's spine. I would recognize his spine anywhere. So I know he's there. And I noticed that his hands were not behind his back because he can't get his hands behind his back. So instead they were tied around his neck.
You mean because arthritis or his age? Or...
Yeah, he's 72. So I just know he's not that flexible. So I noticed they were around his neck, and I noticed that he wasn't as far bent down as the others because he just physically can't be.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific. And last time, James, because he was there in October, an Israeli soldier shouted at him, and he refused to obey because he said that's not how you talk to people. You have to use politeness. And then the guy kicked him in the back of his legs and forced him down onto the ground. And that's what happened last time.
What drives him to undertake these journeys?
First of all, he's a sailor and he wants to be useful and he wants to help and he wants to try and create a better world for his grandchildren, for all the children of the world. He can't stand seeing the annihilation of the Palestinian people, their continued suffering and starvation. And he felt that flotilla was a best way of trying to reach them, but also to get media attention, to get the world's attention onto their plight, which I have to say has worked because now everyone's talking about it.
And I mean, it makes the current scenario quite confusing, really, because for once there's been absolutely undiluted condemnation of Ben Gvir, albeit that Netanyahu has joined in but not actually sanctioned or sacked the man in any meaningful way. But you've got the US ambassador condemning it. You've got Italy's prime minister, the Spanish foreign minister, less surprisingly, all using incredibly strong language. And Yvette Cooper, the foreign secretary, stating that she is truly appalled at the video posted by Israeli cabinet minister Ben Gvir, taunting those involved in the global Sumud flotilla. Have you heard anything from the Foreign Office?
No, they seem to be just in the dark as we are. They say they've been in contact, but we can't find a single family that's had any actual contact with the foreign minister. The SCDO, when we call them, they just say, have you heard from your family member? Which is very confusing because we think, don't you understand that they're prisoners and they've been abducted? So how can they possibly contact us? We're coming to you, hoping that you will be able to give us information. I just want to say that
yes, of course.
The European and the British and the Americans are summoning their ambassadors and making these statements is the very least they could do. We have seen these images coming out before of Palestinians being treated like this. In fact, much, much worse. We've just had the report from the New York Times about the systemic use of sexual violence against Palestinian prisoners, including women and children. That is in the New York Times report. It is extensively well done.
By Nick Kristof. I mean, obviously the Israeli government has denied it, and I think they've even deployed the blood libel label to describe it, but the New York Times will be undertaking, they will have undertaken their own checks and balances before publishing that. That makes the idea of waking up to discover that your dad is in Israeli detention absolutely terrifying.
It's horrific. But it is horrific. But the thing is, I do have some reassurance that because of his passport, because of the international attention, that he will come home to us. And what makes me sad is that we live in a world where it takes this for people to pay attention. I wish that we would all care about Palestinians just as much as we care about the British passport holders, the international passport holders. They all deserve our attention.
Because had this been undertaken by people who don't enjoy the protection of an EU passport or a British passport or an Irish passport, I think the Irish president's sister is in the same flotilla. I mean, she's there now as well. Then you're right, it wouldn't be getting anything like the levels of attention that it's currently getting, which makes me a little bit wary about asking you the next question. But just from a place of complete puzzlement, Claire,
yes,
do you have a view at all on what Ben Gvir was playing at yesterday? Because, I mean, it's a bad enough scenario if I'm reading about it. If I get you on my programme and you describe to me, or your father joins us when he is hopefully and happily home and he tells us about what happened to him, and we respond. Just before you came on, I was exploring the difference between a story and a statistic. And without these pictures and without this man behaving in such a hideous fashion, it's closer to being a statistic than a story. And now he has made it into a... Do you have any idea what he's playing at here?
Well, he did it last time too. He did turn up and taunt them and yell at them, but not in the same escalated fashion. Like, there wasn't the same level of violence and force that was used. I think that he's playing to a certain demographic of the Israeli audience. I think that but also the point is, he said, "I want to give you a taste of how I treat Palestinian prisoners." That is what he said. And, you know, this is the point, is that he gloats all the time about how he treats Palestinian prisoners. The fact that he was the one who pushed through that apartheid law of execution that will only apply to Palestinian prisoners. He's playing to a base. I understand there are elections coming up soon, so perhaps this is, but I just think it's his modus operandi. I think he's a thug in a suit. And I think that this is the level of politician that we're dealing with in Israel, unfortunately. Tragically for the Palestinians.
And still in post, of course. Do you ever try and talk your dad out of it?
No, we have had discussions as a family. I don't personally, because I see what it means to him. Okay. And I said to him, "You'll be miserable if you don't go, won't you?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll be a pain in the ass." And I said, "Well, you better go then."
But obviously your heart is in your hands for the entire journey until he comes back. safely.
Absolutely. I said my mum is very measured, and she said, when you take on something with such gross injustice, whether it be apartheid South Africa or women's rights or whatever it might be, it's not easy. It costs. It takes sacrifice, and this is what it's going to cost, and it's not going to end today. This is going to have to continue. People are going to have to be prepared to make sacrifices.
And to be clear, and just for the benefit of people listening, I think more than me, the aid itself is in some sense symbolic. I mean, nobody really sets off on these flotillas believing that they're going to get to Gaza. The point is,
I think my dad did. I think he was really. I think he felt we've got enough boats this time. One of us will get through.
Okay.
But obviously the Israelis changed strategy and just did more interceptions.
And even if they do get through, it would be a drop in the ocean of what is needed, because all ingress into that territory is completely controlled by Netanyahu's regime. It is as much an achievement, if not more, as you've explained to us, to shine a spotlight on, which is what makes it so odd that Ben Gvir has started dancing hideously in that spotlight, to shine a spotlight on what the Palestinian people are up against through the lens of the treatment of the people trying to help them.
Absolutely. On that front, it's been a success. And I think also on another level that the people of Gaza know that there are people out there who haven't forgotten them, prepared to put their safety on the line, who are prepared to risk something to get to them, to show they're not forgotten. And in fact, I'd just like to say that my 11-year-old daughter saw a video of some children in Gaza watching the skyline, watching the ocean to see the boats coming. And when she heard that her grandfather had been captured, and when she heard that all the other boats had been captured, she said, but the children will be so disappointed. They'll be so disappointed nobody's coming. And I just thought that we need to start seeing this through the eyes of children more and more, because that is where our hearts should be, that we have disappointed children and then they need us.
Claire, thank you. I'm a bit lost for words at that imagery, which is a testimony to how powerful it is. I hope we can speak again soon, or possibly even speak to your dad when he's back home, safe and sound.
Hope so.
I really do. Clare Azzougarh there, telling us of her, and I'm going to mention that he's a British RAF veteran, because it matters and it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters and it doesn't matter to me particularly, but if you are persuadable that everybody going on expeditions like this is the sort of person that got thrown out of the hate march on Sunday because she looked like she'd read a book, then, an RAF veteran, a military hero, undertaking actions that many people join our armed forces to do, to protect people, to help people. And there, on the other side of the moral compass, you have Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Israeli security minister, who no doubt has admirers in this country. It's 11:46.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 11:49. You can find footage, and I mean, God perish the thought, quite possibly spot Claire's dad in the film. That you can find it on the LBC website, or I mean, it's all over the place. And I think when you've had a little more time to watch it, we'll return to this territory tomorrow and ask what that man was playing at, because I don't know. I don't understand Israeli politics well enough, perhaps, to understand why anybody would think that would be an acceptable, let alone a positive thing to do. But I'm sure there are people listening who will be able to tell me, and we'll hear from them tomorrow. For now, though, we stay with the question of whether the spreadsheet will tell a story, whether or not immigration figures plummeting will make any difference at all to public discourse, which has, by very, very, very clear design, been dominated by immigration scaremongering now since the Brexit debate began. And I just don't know whether the numbers coming down will change the temperature of the national conversation. But I still think, despite the long queue of people this morning telling me that I'm being overly optimistic, I still think it has to, ultimately. Ultimately, facts have to matter. You live in periods where they don't, where they are squeezed out, where they're actually undermined, whether it's the Khmer Rouge or Donald Trump. You live through eras where a regime will kill truth. It's the first casualty, not just of war, but of course of extremism. And it has to end. The facts have to prevail eventually. And before we get back to the phones, just one quick story for you, also from the Middle East. the Taliban have legalised child marriage and declared the silence of a girl who had reached puberty, a virgin girl is the phraseology that they use. Her silence can be interpreted as marital consent. It's an absolutely hideous story. I mention it for two reasons. One, because Alton in Blackpool made the point that people fleeing that sort of horror show and fleeing that sort of persecution are now being demonised and targeted in this country, and some of the truly worst of us, some of the very worst people in this country would be keen to send those women and quite possibly children back to the Taliban. How do we know that? Because, well, one of them was stupid enough to tell us.
I've already got two countries agreeing that if we win the next election, they will cooperate with me. The Taliban, by the way, they're not my mates, but the Taliban have said they would accept people back from us to Afghanistan. They've said that already.
I sometimes think I'm the only person that noticed that. I really do. There's Nigel Farage there negotiating with the Taliban. I wonder who he sent. I doubt it was a woman, especially the one that hates brown faces on the telly. Goodness knows how she'd feel about them being opposite. Was it, do you think they sent 30p Lee to negotiate with the Taliban? Why haven't they told us? Is it legal? Are you allowed to negotiate with a prescribed group like the Taliban? But anyway, Farage has been on the phone to them, apparently, making arrangements to send girls back to a country where they can be married off against their will at the age of 9. Well done, everybody. So, will the people who like him and policies like that be persuaded to calm down a bit by today's immigration figures? What do you reckon? Hugh is in. Wait for it. Pontycuma.
Oh,
flipping out. Carry on. I've got Welsh names. I'm going to go on a course, Hugh. I'm going to go on a course. Pontycuma.
Yes.
Carry on. They wrote on the screen. They did it phonetically for me, and they literally wrote porn, like the chess piece. T, coom with a K, K-O-O-M.
Yeah.
So that's wrong.
It's not coom, it's cum.
Thank you.
I think that's where your producer is helping you out.
Pontycuma. Carry on, Hugh. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I'd like sort of a little bit of hope, I suppose. We just had the Senate election in Wales that was predicted to be neck and neck between Plaid Cymru and Reform, and in fact Plaid Cymru won sort of quite convincingly 5 percentage points. And what was interesting, obviously UK Govt did polling beforehand asking people what their number one issues were. Immigration was third, I think, with like top 25%.
Yes.
But that was skewed massively because obviously cost of living and health were the two main issues. But with Reform voters, over 50%, it was immigration. And, Plaid Cymru fought a campaign, not shying away from immigration, actually discussing its benefits. And I'd like to pull you up on something.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah, no, you got me.
Party,
bang to rights, mate. Bang to rights. You got me. Say it out loud. Go on, slap me.
So the two parties, I think, who've done more about this are the SNP in Scotland and Plaid Cymru in Wales.
Yes.
And Rhina Piorwedd has been quite open talking about, the benefits of...
So they haven't given up the battle that I've been describing as lost all morning, and the fact that they just won a big result in Wales suggests that I was talking out of my backside.
And actually used it as part of their pitch. Obviously, you're not going to win everybody over. Reform did get just under, I think, 29% of the vote. But again, we have to remember Reform vote is skewed by older people. And I think, one of the, it's not a positive, but, that their support and the people who voted for Brexit are slowly dying off. And I think younger people, because I think Caerphilly, the Caerphilly by-election before Christmas, that was seen as, Reform through everything at that. Farage came down 3 times, but it was all about immigration in an area where it's got the lowest immigration in the whole of the UK. I think it's like 99% of the population are Welsh.
Great Yarmouth might challenge it on that front. I know that there's some parts of Norfolk and Essex where, again, the Brexit vote was huge, but the actual immigration figures were relatively tiny. But I mean, that's how you know it works, isn't it? The people most terrified of it are the people who have the least experience of it.
Yeah. But what was interesting there was, obviously, sort of neck and neck, Plaid Cymru actually won with a big majority, 5,000, and a lot of that was credited as well to younger people actually coming out to vote. People 16-year-olds are able to vote in elections in Wales, and a lot of those young people came out and used their voices. So I think, I think the numbers coming down, could have an effect, but it all comes back again to information and political education. There was another poll, I think it was like sort of 47% of people thought that the majority of immigration was due to small boats. And as you mentioned, it's like 4 or 5% of the overall number. So it's this perception. They're obviously being told stuff by Reform and Farage.
It's 4 to 5%, and it's caused entirely by policies that were introduced in the hope of bringing down the official numbers. It's incredible, that, isn't it? So call it irregular migration, caused by attempts to bring down regular migration.
Yeah, but I think the big issue as well is how it was legitimised, hearing sort of Labour politicians all the way along saying, people are right to be concerned about immigration without actually explaining what immigration is. Because, we know, people who look into it, that the majority of people who come here, half come to study, half come to work. Yeah. I've been in hospital over the last year having various bits of operations and treatments. I've been lying in wards that is full of people like me, white, Welsh, middle-aged men being treated by people from all over the world. And that's the thing that's worrying, is when you hear about people being, the incidence of, race hate in hospitals going up, where, the lived experiences of people, surely I was in there, the last time I was in, I was having a gallbladder out, and it was the first time ever there was a person who wasn't white Welsh in there, and I got talking to the guy, and he was a doctor from India, who left India, got a job on a cruise ship as a doctor, settled in Southampton, came to South Wales, set up a GP practice, and served the community for over 40 years. So the only person there was actually somebody who's contributed more than most people, so it's quite ironic. But this is the I don't mean you paradigm, isn't it? Because you hear a story, I don't mean him, Hugh. I mean the other ones, the ones on my Facebook feed, the ones in the boats, the ones doing this, the ones doing that. I had it during Brexit in Pontycymer, talking to people, how are you voting? Oh, I'm voting for Brexit. Why? Immigration. Yeah. And you ask them, what immigrants? You ask them on the ground. The only immigrants here are the people you get your Indian and your Chinese from. Oh yeah, but they're different. But they were literally being fed this thing that they thought that the UK
I don't hold any
filled up from the bottom up with,
and they still do, and they've gone unchallenged, and they wouldn't have got Brexit over the line without it, and they haven't even tried to get it back in the bottle. They've just moved on to the next project, blown up the next bridge, brought Boris Johnson into Downing Street, and that went well for everybody. So now they're trying to get Farage in. Nothing ever changes if what everything you sell is built on lies and bigotry. But of course, you just have questions about how long we have to endure it before decency returns. A question that America is currently asking itself, and which Hungary has just answered. Hugh, what a great call! Thank you. I thought I might have dreamt it. The idea of someone being chucked out of Stephen Yaxley-Lennon's hate march because she looked like she'd read a book. So I began to just double-check what I was looking at. I need to clarify something else. Well, personally, Victoria, I don't think I do need to clarify this, but you've asked me to, so I will. Can you please clarify that the group that was referenced as attending the hate march are anti-trans, as opposed to trans, because trans people strangely tend to be a pretty woke bunch? I did think that was obvious, Victoria. But I am more than happy to clarify, just as I'm happy to play you this again, it's best seen with pictures, but by the time this is clipped up and stuck on your socials, it probably will have pictures. To the best of my knowledge, and as always, I'm open to correction or reinterpretation. To the best of my knowledge, this is footage of a British woman at the hate march on Sunday, organised by the serial criminal and immigration offender, Stephen Yaxley-Lennon, being removed from the crowd because other members of that crowd, who are just perfectly ordinary people with legitimate concerns, thought that she looked as if she'd read a book once. Although that's not how they put it. They said she looks like a right effing lefty. Hopefully Keith has bleeped part of that sentence.
Look at her. Looks like she's been electrocuted.
Get her out! Get her out! She's got the right left look on the face. Get her out!
I think you're in the right.
She is looking green on the face. Look at her! Get her out! Look at Steve in the face. She's here to wind us up.
We're going to have to go. Leave, yeah. Went to bed earlier.
I mean, she's got a right effing lefty look on her face. Get her out, get her out. I mean, these are the free speech bros, right? These are the guys that think their free speech is like two-tier care and all that malarkey. Literally being removed from a public place for wearing spectacles, was it, do you think? Looking like she'd read a book once? There's a bloke they're talking about her hair. She looks like she's had an electric shock. So they didn't like her hairstyle? They're literally expelling her. I mean, I thought I might have imagined that. She's got a right effing lefty look. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't think that lady shouting that, I don't think she's going to be much moved by today's immigration statistics. It's Mystery Hour next.
James O'Brien on LBC.
6 minutes after 12 is the time. I nearly said 10. That would have given you a bit of a shock to the old system, wouldn't it? And time for Mystery Hour, your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio. If you've never come across this feature before, then it's rather fun. It's one of my favourite parts of the week, and it almost always yields moments of delightful levity, proper fun, even occasionally some frolics. It's not a particularly complicated premise. One person rings in with a question, could be almost anything, and someone else then rings in with an answer. And somewhere between those two positions, magic can happen, as you are about to discover. I even, these days, have a prize for my favourite contribution of the week. It is a Mystery Hour game, of which there are now 2 versions, would you believe? More on that after this. Bum, bum, bum. You have the original board game, and you also have the travel edition, which is in a tin, which is a lovely little bit of kit, actually. If you're looking for a reasonably priced present for the curious person in your life, by which I mean they are curious about things, not that they are curious, as in they sort of, I don't know, wear antlers to the pub or something like that, then I would heartily recommend the travel edition of the game. But if you want something to take on holiday for fun with all the family, then get the board game version. Find out more at mysteryhour.co.uk, the website, and get your terms and conditions for the actual competition at lbc.co.uk. Before Mystery Hour starts, I need to do something. Can anyone remember, and I'm looking at my colleagues now, why I mentioned Pol Pot earlier? Was anyone listening? No? All busy, were you? Is there cake in there again, is there? Someone delivered some cake? Yeah, Keith makes a valid point. I actually said it and I don't remember either, so I'm probably not in a position to start throwing stones. But I mentioned either Pol Pot or the Khmer Rouge. What have we got at the moment? A 10-second delay? So is it worth waiting to see if anyone else can remember why I mentioned Pol Pot or the Khmer Rouge? Because I can't remember why I mentioned it. But what I did forget was that if you wore glasses in Khmer Rouge era Cambodia, one of the most brutal regimes of the last century, 2 million people dead, a Marxist, so-called Marxist leader, Pol Pot, dragging Cambodia back to the Middle Ages, forcing millions of people from the cities to move to communal farms in the countryside. If you wore spectacles, it was a death sentence. And that's what happened at Stephen Yaxley's Lennon's March on Sunday. They expelled a woman wearing spectacles because she had a right lefty look on her face. The Khmer Rouge, Pol Pot, literally thought that spectacles were a sign of education, and educated people would be an obstacle to his totalitarian regime. So you read this stuff. Oh, that was 1976 in Cambodia. It's funny, right? And then you turn on your flipping television or your computer, and someone's sharing a clip of a woman being publicly almost lynched because of her face and her spectacles. And that's British values for you. That's I suppose she was lucky to get away without having a flag stapled to her forehead. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. It's time for Mystery Hour. Catherine's in Pulborough. Catherine, question or answer?
Oh, hello, question.
Hello, Catherine. Carry on.
Lovely to speak to you.
I agree.
I'm wondering why magpies like shiny things, why they like picking them up and flying away with them.
I like that. I'm almost certain that we've done it before, but I'm of an age now, Catherine, where I've done almost everything before, so we're just going around again with a little bit more enthusiasm than we had the first time. Have you lost anything recently to an acquisitive magpie?
We used to have a pet magpie, and it used to love stealing people's car keys, which was quite funny because it would fly away with them and dump them in hedges and
When
trees.
you say a pet magpie, do you just mean a friendly magpie?
No, we found it as a fledgling when it'd fallen out of its nest, and we rang around all the animal places, and they said to leave it, and we left it, and it survived one night in a rural area, and then we were like, no, we better feed it and look after it, and it just stayed with us.
Where did it
Didn't
sleep?
fly
Did
away.
it stay in the house?
It did come in the house sometimes, but it did sleep outside.
Gosh.
My nanny also had a pet magpie when she was growing up.
Is this a thing? I've not heard of it.
I don't know.
That's two for joy, isn't it? That's a relief. Don't let anyone else in the family get one.
No.
Not if you're superstitious.
I know. I think that superstition's really unfair because they're really intelligent birds.
Oh,
they can
sorry.
live to be up to 20 years, and they can mimic human speech.
And did yours?
Not.
Oh, you had a slow one. My
did,
first
we
band was
did.
called the Slow Magpies. And, there goes my next question. I was going to ask you what words he could do. What was his name?
Rags.
That's lovely,
Yeah.
that. Rags the magpie. Why did Rags, Nick Carkid, why did magpies like shiny things? I'm trying to think. The reason I kept Catherine on the line there was because sometimes if I do that, I kind of find the question crystallising in my mind. Whether I'm dragging it up from my memory or whether I'm working it out for myself. It's a reason why magpies like shiny things. It's gone. I've not got it. If it was ever there, it's not there now. Thank you, Catherine. 11 minutes after 12 is the time. Our first question is on the board. What will the second one be? Jason's in Edgware. Jason, question or answer?
It's a question, sir.
Carry on, Jason.
Why don't people ride zebras? You see people riding horses, you see people riding elephants and everything else.
Yeah.
And I was reading the Game of Thrones the other day.
Oh, yes.
And they were talking about people coming into the castle on black and white horses.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's a zebra. And then it suddenly, I've never seen anybody ride a zebra.
Have you
Or
seen
in any
any?
film.
Have you seen anybody try?
Well, no, that's what I mean. You
Well,
see
that might
people
be the
riding
answer. You
elephants-
might, if you watch someone try to ride a zebra, you might get the answer as to why people don't
Yeah, but
try
they
much.
look like horses and they look like donkeys, etc., etc.
They do. Well,
But
yeah, they're equine, aren't they? I think they're
Yeah.
part of the same genus or
But
species.
even ostriches or camels or whatever. But
I
I've
don't,
never
I don't
seen
think anyone
any-
ever rode an ostrich. That was Don McLean running the marathon in a suit.
No, they do. They race them.
Do they?
Yeah.
They race ostriches, sitting on them. Why do we not? Well, actually, I think people do ride zebras. There was a bloke. There was a bloke in Kidderminster when I was growing up. Used to ride a zebra around town. You'd often see him on the A456.
Oh, okay. In which case, I'm totally wrong.
No,
I've never
I made
seen
that
it
up.
anywhere.
I completely
Yeah.
made that up. Of course, I didn't have a bloke riding a zebra around Kidderminster in the 1970s.
I listen to you every day, and I trust what you say.
Well, I'm not going to abuse that trust by persisting with that lie. The only lie on this programme that I have persisted with, while admitting it was a lie, involves, as you will probably remember, the Earl of Dartmouth and the invention of darts. So why don't people? I mean, it's got a very natural history flavour, a tribute perhaps belatedly to Sir David Attenborough's 100th birthday. Why do magpies like shiny things, and why don't people ride zebras? Do you say zebra or zebra?
It's his birthday on Saturday, so I'd love the board.
Oh, all right. Don't be needy. No, don't be needy. But I'll make a note, Jason. I'll make a note. It might. I mean, if it's a good question, it might get into the next edition of the game. It's very much game friendly. That question. Why don't people ride zebras? Because part of the fun of the game is the wrong answers. It's the false. Why do you say zebra?
Well, I was going to say zebra, but then I realised that I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I was playing with the idea of zebra or zebra.
I think it's zebra. I mean, it
Maybe
doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. But you made me think maybe I've got it wrong. But I think I'm going with zebra. Zebra. Let's call the whole thing off. It's coming out to 12:15. Luke's in Bromley. Luke, question or answer?
It's a question.
Carry
we're
on.
coming to that season where flies come into the house and it's very annoying. They're going up and down, round and round.
Yes.
And it's coming to that same part of the season where the owner of the house ends up running around trying to get the thing out. And what happens is the fly speeds up.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, my question is, do flies get stressed? Do they feel anxiety? What is it that causes them to go faster? And including those ones that goes round and round under the lampshade,
I mean, there's a lot
they speed
here.
up.
There's a lot to unpack. I mean, the central question is, do flies get stressed?
Yeah, and then after a while, they go back to normal speed again. They have two speeds. They have turbo and they have normal.
Well, I've always presumed that they fly away because they think you're a predator, probably correctly, because you're trying to swat them. So they've got like
do they
antennae.
think that, though?
Yeah.
Do they have time?
Yeah. So would
Do they
that
really
be?
think
So that
they're
would be.
predator?
But I don't think their nervous system would stretch to being adrenalised, would it, or anything like that? I mean, it's a great question. It's a weird mystery out of this. So just for the benefit of people tuning in for the first time, it's not just animal-based questions that we do. Or natural. Well, you're allowed to ask about anything you like, politics, all sorts of weird, anything you want. So we've just got magpies, zebras, and flies on the board so far. But to destroy, I mean, I don't think their nervous system would be sophisticated enough for emotion.
Well, do they need like a little couch? Maybe they can go for some, you know,
A little bit of R&R, a little bit. Well, all right. Do flies have feelings? Is actually the question. I mean, who's going to be able to answer that? Let's find out. 0345 6060 973. And I think I did Bernie Clifton a grave disservice. So it was Bernie Clifton that used to bomb around in an ostrich suit, wasn't it? Have I gone mad? Well, I mean, particularly, or madder. Was it Bernie Clifton used to do the London Marathon in an ostrich suit for... I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry.
James O'Brien on LBC.
18 minutes after 12 is the time. I thank you for your good wishes. I didn't realise it was International Tea Day, but I do now, so I accept your greetings, and I return them. That's one of those things. We should make a list, shouldn't we, of all the ideas I've had over the years that have come to nothing. I reckon, right, that every day is something. International Tea Day, you know, International, I don't know, Traffic Cone Day. Every day is something. There's even an International Men's Day, but keep that on the down low, because it's always funny to spot the misogynists on International Women's Day going, why isn't there an International Men's Day? International Tea Day today, according to the United Nations. Do you know the earliest initiator and promoter of International Tea Day was the Chinese scholar Chen Entian? Of course you did. And the resolution to inaugurate International Tea Day was made on December the 21st, 2019. I drink a lot of tea. You can tell how much tea I drink by the size of my mug. So happy International Tea Day to one and all. Back to Mystery Hour. Chris is in Kingston upon Thames. Chris, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's a question.
Yes.
And, well, before I start, my little girl was absolutely delighted that you answered her question last time about cats.
Good.
So, and she even got a round of applause.
Oh, that's lovely.
It certainly was. My question today is, why do the Irish uilleann pipes have to be played while sitting down? What was the origin of that? Because unlike the Scottish Highland pipes, which can be played while standing or marching.
And so you can't play the uilleann pipes standing up?
No, not a hope in hell.
Have you tried?
Well...
Have you ever ridden a zebra?
I've never... I've ridden horses, but never a zebra.
Have you ever met a stressed fly?
Oh, loads of them.
They always seem quite stressed. How would you spot a fly that wasn't stressed? A non-stressed fly is probably a dead fly. But I digress slightly. I'm familiar with the uilleann pipes. Uilleann pipes.
Uilleann pipes, yeah.
But I guess I just presumed that whenever I've encountered or seen someone playing them, they'd chosen to sit down.
No, well, you have to have them strapped around your waist.
You might be answering your own question now.
Maybe, but also strapped around both of your arms.
Crikey. I mean, because I've always thought of the Scottish Highland pipes, the bagpipe. I mean, they're both bagpipes, aren't they, technically? But the Scottish version that you referred to as a sort of, not quite an act of war, but, you know, the pipers leading troops across the glen into battle. It'd be pretty useless if you could only play them sitting down.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I like that. I don't know. So it's something about the engineering of the uilleann pipes that explains why. So that's what we want to know. Why didn't you just ask the last bloke you saw playing them?
Well, the last bloke I saw playing them was me.
Oh. Well, haven't you worked out why you have to sit down to play them?
Because I can't play them standing up.
But what if it's just you?
Well, I would imagine that you usually would see.
What happens if you're playing your uilleann pipes and you just sort of stand up? Like that?
I'd probably stay on.
What do you mean you've never tried it? This is falling apart, Chris. I hope your daughter doesn't listen back to this. It's going to rob her of all her remaining joy at her success on Mystery Hour last time. So you're asking why you can't play these pipes standing up, but you do play these pipes and you've never tried standing up?
Well, I have tried standing up, but...
while playing the pipes?
Yeah, but, well, it's a bit difficult.
Yeah, all right.
And so my daughter always says, well, if you don't know, ask James.
Oh, and now you've made me feel... Yeah, because that is a fairly good mantra for life, actually. If you don't know, ask James. Well, James doesn't know either. But I will do my level best to find out. Why can't you play the uilleann pipes standing up? 0345 6060 97. Have you got them with you at the moment, Chris?
I have got a set right next to me, but they're not set up at the moment.
How long does it take to set them up?
Oh, 5 minutes.
Right, I'm going to go to put... You're going to set them up. We're going to come back to you shortly.
Okay.
I mean it. Don't you go letting me down. And if that phone is engaged, you'll be banned from Mystery Hour. We're going to hear the uilleann pipes sitting down shortly. We're a bit short of questions. You can probably tell that by the quality of the ones that I've got on air. So we are it's a call to us. It's just a bit of fun. It's a joke. No offence to Chris or to Luke or to Jason or to Catherine. They're all lovely questions. Lovely, lovely questions. But we have got room for quite a lot more, actually. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. If you tried to get through and you failed, try again now, because there's a very big churn this hour. It would turn over the calls, because a lot of people ring in and they say, well, we did actually do that last week. Or they ring in and say, well, that's not a proper question. There's no way we'll ever be able to answer that. So don't think that just because you couldn't get through 5 minutes ago, you wouldn't get through now. Try again. Quick. Go on. Quick. Paul's in Cologne. Paul, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Paul.
It's the answer to whether zebras can be ridden.
Or why no one rides one.
Yes.
Carry on.
From seeing this firsthand...
Yes.
You won't be able to stay on one more than about 5 seconds. According to the horse trainer, they're totally untrainable.
Yeah. So you couldn't tame one?
You can't tame one.
I think there was a Rothschild who had a carriage that was pulled around by zebras, but that's more feasible than climbing on one. It would probably a different level of taming or training. You could just about harness them up and get them to pull your carriage around, but that's different from climbing on one and riding around the place.
Yes, I would think so. I do actually have a friend who has a safari park here in Germany.
Don't we all?
And she actually has a zebra horse. So she has a zebra that was bred with a horse. It has a stripy face and a white backside, and it lived with its horse family, and they thought it'd be quite good if they could get it into their cowboy western show that they put on with horses. So they tried to train it, and they absolutely failed. They tried for years. Even though it was tame, it had only ever lived in captivity. It lived with horses. It saw what other horses did. They said that this natural temperament from its evolution just did not let it be trained.
I mean, I'm going to give you a round of applause, but it's not necessarily definitive, because it might really hurt. It could be something to do with their vertebrae or their spine, couldn't it? So they'd be perfectly happy to be ridden around the place, but it really hurts, which would also explain...
It could also be that it's just that one zebra.
Yeah, well, it could just be you had a grumpy zebra. What, is it a hebra or a zorse?
They call it a zebra horse.
Well, that's a bit rubbish. That's the bloody Germans for you. They love their compound words, don't they? I'd go for zorse. Zorse is better than zebra horse. Zorse, it's a zorse. Better than a hebra, I think. Zorse. Where was I? That might also be true, because definitely a lot of people are confirming my Rothschild memory. There was a member of the Rothschild family who was renowned, I think, in Tring. It may have been in Tring, I don't know where this information comes from, riding around in a carriage, in a zebra-drawn carriage. So that would add to the anatomical explanation for why you can't ride a zebra. They can be tamed up to a point, but they can't be ridden. Paul, have a round of applause on me.
Thank you very much.
What's the most exotic animal your friend has in her safari park?
Exotic animal? Oh, now you're asking. I would say she's got a bird-eating spider, which I almost can't look at. It's too terrifying.
Is it just a horrible-looking creature?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And of course, as you know, Paul, the Rothschild's carriage had one pony at the front, Tina tells me, to guide the others. So yet more complications to the zebra-based question. And still no answers to the questions about magpies or flies, or indeed the uilleann pipes. On we go. Vonda is in Tinton in the Wye Valley.
Hi, James.
Hello.
Nice to speak to you again. It's Vanda.
Of course it's Vanda. Question or answer, Vanda?
I have a question, James.
Yes.
My kids are 8 and 9. They're now at the stage where they're asking questions about everything and they want to know the answers. And
Marvellous.
my mother-in-law came... Oh, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. But it also really tests your knowledge.
Yes, it does. But yes, of course it does. Because I say so.
Yeah, it doesn't cut the mustard anymore. So I have an origin of a phrase question. So my mother-in-law came round and was complaining and saying, "Oh, the neighbours last night were so loud, they were screaming blue murder." And the kids went, "Why blue murder?" And we all just looked at each other and went, "No idea." And I thought, the next time I have got a spare moment and mystery hour's on, I'll give you a call.
I like that question. I'm almost certain we've had it before. If we haven't, my friend Wayne in Basildon, although he's on nights at the moment, so he's probably not listening, he will be reaching for his volume of Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, which he's not actually allowed to do, but he's read the whole thing cover to cover and can remember most of it, so he may well pop up in the next few minutes with an answer to that question. If not, someone else surely will. The origin of the phrase blue murder, and the reason why Vanda referenced that as an origin of phrase question is because she's obviously old school. Mystery Hour. You're only allowed one origin of phrase question per show, because for reasons I've never understood, as soon as one person rings in with an origin of phrase question, then unless I make it immediately clear that we won't be taking any more origin of phrases questions, we get a million other origin of phrases questions. So even on a day like today, when we were a bit short of questions 10 minutes ago, but I don't think we are anymore, I won't allow any more origin of phrases questions, otherwise we won't have time to do anything else. Are you still with me at the back? A lot of answers coming in. Horsey. What's better, a zorse or a horsey? What would you call a cross between... It sounds like the first line of a joke. But what would you call a cross between a zebra and a horse? I've got nothing. It's coming up to 12:30. One more, quickly. John is in Pittston in Buckinghamshire. John, question or answer?
Question.
Yes.
Okay, so why is it when you go to a nightclub, the bouncer always says it's 1 in, 1 out?
Yeah.
It should be 1 out, 1 in.
I tell you what you should do. You should point that out. Find a really, really big bouncer, John, and then point out to him that he is being syntactically foolish. Tell him that.
Okay.
Say,
okay.
Oi.
You know you did the horse joke. Can I give you a joke? Because my daughters will find it very embarrassing. Can I tell you a joke?
Well,
it's clean.
I'll take the first line of the joke, and then I'll decide whether or not I'm going to let you share the punchline.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. What do you call a magic dog?
Yeah, go on.
A labracadabrador.
Is that your own?
I wish.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's fair.
It's one of the best jokes ever.
It is one of the best jokes ever. I absolutely love it. We're not doing jokes either. Stay there a minute, John. So you can't ring in. This is the only phone-in show in the world where we have more rules about who can't ring in than we do about who can. You can't ring in with origin of phrase questions, and you absolutely categorically can't ring in with any jokes, all right? That was a special dispensation for John, and John alone. I think the answer is going to be linguistic facility, John, isn't it? 1 in, 1 out. It trips off the tongue nice. 1 out, 1 in. Oh, so does 1 out, 1 in. But it's not necessarily chronological either. 1 in, 1 out, 1 out, 1 in.
It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Well, it does make sense.
You don't go in there and pick someone to leave.
You wait till someone leaves and then you get someone. Yeah, but I don't...
It's been bothering me for years.
Well, I don't think you're going to end today's programme unbothered, to be honest with you, because I very much doubt there's a formalised or indeed obvious answer to that question. But if there is, we'll do our level best to find it. But promise me next time you're outside a nightclub, you will point this out to the biggest bouncer you can find.
Okay.
Thank you. Amelia Cox has your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:34 and you are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Can't call it a horse bra, you ridiculous man, John. That's a completely different thing. Honestly, questions still need answers. Why do magpies like shiny things? Why can't you ride a zebra? We kind of got an answer to that, but it's not necessarily complete. It was entirely emotional, the answer to that. It was character-based. I wonder whether there's an anatomical element. Bad news from Kingston. Chris's barrel is bent. Well, he's bent the pipe. The barrel is bent. He can't play his uilleann pipes. The stock is bent, so we won't be getting a live. And he was very contrite. This is definitely not a lead swinging exercise. We still need to know why you can't play the uilleann pipe standing up, given that they are bagpipes. And the Scottish bagpipe, you can, of course, play standing up. Indeed, I don't think I've ever seen anyone playing the Scottish bagpipe sitting down. What a strange world we live in. What is the origin of the phrase blue murder? And why do good luck with this one, John. Why do bouncers say one in, one out, when obviously it should be one out, one in? Michael's in Brentwood. Michael, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
Good afternoon.
Good
first
afternoon.
Of all.
Thank you,
I hope
Michael.
your day's been well.
It's going okay.
Oh, good.
You?
Well, you
Everything
can't
all
ask
right
much
your
more
end? Happy International Tea Day, Michael. Happy International
yes,
Tea Day.
Yes, thank you. I'm a bit of a teapot, so it was with joy that I received that. Thank you.
Carry on.
My question is about sand on beaches, or sandy beaches, or beaches with sand, however you want to put it. On holiday a couple of years ago with family in Cornwall, went to a couple of different beaches, and it struck me that, we'd go to a beach on the Saturday and quite fine sand, powdery stuff. But then literally the next day we'd go to a different beach, maybe 1 mile, 2 miles down the road, and the granularity of the sand was just radically different. No longer looking at kind of powdery, soft sand, but quite coarse, sharp sand. And then again, 2-3 miles down the road, another beach, there'll be like literal pebbles on the beach.
Yeah.
Now, I know this is to do with the tide. I know this, but
not just
it's
the
always
tide.
struck me
Not just the tide.
Would the tide not just pick all of the fine sand up and deposit it on beaches, no matter what, no matter where?
No.
I'm confused by this.
What is the actual question?
I guess why do different beaches have different granularities of sand? Is that a summary enough? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's obvious, though.
Well,
not obvious.
Maybe.
Not obvious. I mean, it's a bit like asking why different countries have different weather. Well, it's not like that at all, actually. Sorry. I'm just thinking that it's going to have as much to do with geology as it is with meteorology, isn't it? I mean, Bruce knows where I'm coming from. Bruce says it's because they're different beaches.
Well, obvious. Yeah, I mean...
But I think that's kind of probably close to correct. It's because, do you see what I mean? It's going to be so, if you have the sea washing in and out of that bit there that's made of that rock, then you're going to end up with this granularity of sand. And if it goes on for this period of time and that bit fell into the sea and then you've got this bit here and the sea moves slightly differently, but it's based on that kind of rock washing in and then you're going to have then you're going to have pebbles, I think.
So my spouse would agree with both you and, I didn't catch fella's name, and she would ridicule me for asking this.
Bruce, no, I don't think you deserve to be ridiculed. It's going to be a combination of...
I think there's something deeper here. I think there's some I don't know, some global plot.
There's definitely no global plot to confuse your holiday, or because you wear your flip-flops on the pebbly beach and you don't need them on the sandy beach. It's going to be a combination of rock type and tide. It's going to be that. But I can't go definitive because I've just worked that out. And I could conceivably be wrong. So we'll wait for someone who sounds like they know what they're talking about.
Yes.
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 But I feel, I don't know, I just feel deeply unsatisfied by that answer.
That's why I'm leaving it on the board. That's why I'm leaving it. Everyone's a critic. It's on the board. It will be that. And then if you're still deeply unsatisfied with it, then there's nothing I can do to help. Why have you just deleted that message? I just needed to read that out. Because the stock is bent. The barrel for the stock is bent. Because there'll be some people listening who know a lot about uilleann pipes, and they're wondering exactly what's gone wrong with Chris's. And the short answer is the barrel for the stock is bent. I don't know whether there are any uilleann pipe stock barrel unbenders in Kingston, but I have to hope so. Thank you, Michael. From Michael to Mary in Leighton. Mary, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on, Mary.
Right, you are my last hope. I've asked so many fellas this.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
How are the commentators at the World Cup going to know every name of every player like they already do?
It's a really good question. I mean, one way is, of course, that the names are written on their backs on their shirts.
They can't see them from the box.
No, that's very true. The other way, the numbers you can see, however.
Yeah.
And they will have, and they actually work quite hard. I know a couple of commentators, and they do quite a lot of research. And in fact, I think they even followed John Motson around once and did his pre-game prep. They'll have charts in front of them that not only are really easy to read, so the minute you see the number, you see the name of the player in front of you, but there'll also be notes next to it that say things like top scorer in the Bundesliga last season or transferred from. So they'll have like almost a sort of mini-pedia, a mini Wikipedia page attached to each number with the name very easy to read, so that when they're commentating, they are simultaneously consulting their notes. A bit like what I do, Mary, to be honest with you. Don't you ever sit there listening to this thinking, how does he know all that stuff?
Yeah, but you've got a lot more time, haven't you, than a commentator sitting in the...
Yeah, but they don't have as much in front of them to deal with. They've only got a maximum of 22 people, and they've prepped it properly, and in that moment, they will reach for their note with the number, get the name, and then if the situation allows, they'll throw in a little bit of interesting information as well.
OK, so how do they know how to pronounce them properly?
Practice. So they'll check. Some broadcasters will provide style guides, and they'll have a phonetic exposition of the name. So, for example, if you were playing the Turkish team Fenerbahce and you were tempted to call it Fenerbahce, you would check that before you played, and you'd go to a pronunciation. The BBC used to have a pronunciation department. Whether or not it still does, I do not know. But that is what you would do. That's why they do proper research. It's a thing.
Oh, brilliant! Honestly,
yeah? Are you happy?
You just wait till I see my son now. I have asked so many guys.
Yeah.
If they know this. Nobody knows it.
It's what it is. And I mean, hopefully, I'm not going to take a round of applause, Mary, and my phone lines are quite full, and it is already quite late in the hour, but you never know. We might actually get a professional commentator ringing in just to put the cherry on the icing on the cake.
That'd be even better.
Wouldn't
Do you know
it?
what? I'm 88, and I used to know every name of every footballer. I was the Bobby Moore era.
Really?
Yeah, lovely. So you've made my day.
Oh, well, you've made my day now, Mary, telling me that. Let's try. Come on, if anyone's listening, who do I hear from? Bob Ballard sometimes gets in touch with the programme. Clive, he's often on. Well, it's the problem with not being on Twitter anymore is that you don't have the banter with your fellow blue ticks in your direct messages box. It was one of the ways in which Clive Tilsley used to get in touch quite. He might be listening. Come on. It's not just lads either these days either. Alex Jones, come on, someone give us an answer to the question. How do the football commentators know everything?
They enough got a job on their hands, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, mate. I've got to deal with like millions of people. They've only got to deal with 22.
Yeah, but if all your people ring in and they're like me, they just want a straightforward...
Yeah, you're right, actually. You've probably got a harder job than me. That's why they only do 90 minutes instead of the full 3 hours. Mary, God bless you. Have a lovely day, and let's try and find a proper commentator for Mary just to close it down completely. Lovely stuff. It's 12:42. Alex is in Ealing. Alex, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Alex.
Right. I don't know if you watch snooker on TV.
Oh, yes, I do. Oh,
right.
Yes, I do.
Okay. So this question has been bugging me for months now.
Go on.
When a player leans over the table to take their shot, you often see them rhythmically raising and lowering their middle fingers.
You do.
Have you ever noticed that?
I have.
So what are they doing and why are they doing it?
I think it's the same reason why you stick your tongue out when you're threading a needle.
You stick your tongue out when you're threading a needle?
No, you stick your tongue out when you're threading a needle. All right.
I certainly don't.
When you're putting on mascara, then?
I don't put on mascara either, unsurprisingly.
Well, when do you stick your tongue out?
Not often, generally.
No? All right. Well, when you concentrate on something, you do something that is not directly linked to the thing that you're concentrating on.
To take your mind off what you're actually doing, you think?
Yeah, or to shift your focus. Also, rhythm. You know, they could be introducing a bit of rhythm into the, like almost subconsciously, getting a night, because it's all about rhythm.
Doesn't sound very definitive to me, James.
No, I'm not taking I don't know. Again, I mean, I know a lot of snooker players listen. But
well, come on, Ronnie or Alex or Judd, ring in.
Michael Holt, I hear from quite a lot. The Hitman might be listening today. Any other snooker players? Why do you tap your finger? Why do you do that? Let's find out for Alex. When you said Alex, who did you mean?
Who did I mean?
Yeah,
you just Alex Higgins.
He's not going to ring in. He's been dead for 20 years.
No, he hasn't. And he was playing in the Masters.
Alex Higgins. No, John Higgins.
No, James, not John Higgins.
Are you really going to get all condescending with me for suggesting that Alex Higgins was not playing in the Masters last week?
He was in World Championships last week, even.
Alex Higgins?
Yes.
Right, alert the newsroom. We've got the biggest story of my life. Seriously. It's 12:40. God bless you. It's 12:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:47 is the time. And just for the avoidance of doubt, Alex Higgins is indeed no longer with us. He passed away in 2010. So I think that Alex there in Ealing is, I don't know if he's started accidentally watching repeats. Gary's in Calais. Question or answer, Gary?
Well, I've got an answer, actually. It's more or less definitive to your zebra one.
Go on, then.
And they could and were trained as mounted animals for Germany in the 1890s and 80s, leading up to the First World War. They looked at it, riding zebras in preference to horses. Now, there was an issue, and this is the Schutztruppen and the German colonial military.
Yeah.
There was an issue with disease amongst horses coming over from Europe, etc.
Right.
Mainly the tsetse fly, which was cutting swathes of horses away, and they said, let's look at the locals.
Right.
The local zebra it wasn't affected by it. It was also very good in the bush, where it had been there for obviously hundreds of thousands of years. So it was aware of predators and could pick up the alarms, etc. So there are lots of photographs of German officers taking these things over jumps, putting displays on with them, and it was seriously looked at. And they did use them but there was always a kickback because they were actually. It was a good joke there. Because there was the problem was because they were quite skittish. That could be an issue. Okay, they couldn't sort of breed that out of them. So they then turned around and said, "Look, they go to harness very well.
Yeah,
the tsetse fly thing, that's good as well. We can use them as packed draft animals, which they did, but they weren't as hardy as mules. But yes, they used them and they rode them. But there was a big problem actually using them for the job they wanted was as a military horse. Come on to the 20th century." You get the likes of the Rothschilds are using them as coach horses.
Yes, I heard about it.
You got various musical stars.
It was in Tring, I think, Gary.
I'm not sure where it was, but you actually do get that. Well done. But certainly they were looked at in the Germans. If anyone wants to Google use of zebra German army prior to the Great War, loads of photographs come up of German officers jumping over jumps with them and displaying their...
Well, you live and learn. I mean, I know the answer to this, but not everybody else will. Qualifications?
Military historian. Sir.
Military historian. Doing battlefield tours, battlefield tours in France and elsewhere, and interested in the German army. So there it is. They were too skittish
to be used by the military.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you do see sort of circus performers. Obviously, we see that. But other people thought it's a bit odd, it's a bit weird, get me out there. But yes, they can be. Yes, they were. But not in the environment the Germans really wanted them for.
I love this. It's a brilliant answer, mate. And, of course, part of it is going to involve evolution in that the horse has been domesticated by man to do all of the things that horses now do. Well, with a zebra, it's a standing start, isn't it? You're kind of plucking it from the wild and expecting it to behave in the same way that an animal that's been domesticated for 2,000 years or more would behave, which is...
Spot on.
Not going to... A round of applause for Gary. Stripe on.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, not great. Needed work. I mean, my joke at the end, not Gary's contribution, which was characteristically brilliant. Ian's in Stevenage. Ian, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
Right, you were asking why you have to sit down to play the Eland pipes.
Yes.
And basically the Eland pipes are a more complex instrument than the Scottish pipes.
Oh.
So you've got, you can play 2 octaves, and to get the second octave, you need to overblow the reed. Now, with an instrument like, say, an oboe, you would put pressure on the reed with your lips, but because you've got a bagpipe and you've not got that physical contact with the reed, when the instrument was being developed, they discovered that if you closed the chanter up, the melody pipe up, you could compress the air in there and force it into the second octave. So what you actually do is you put the end of the chanter on your thigh, on your knee, in order to get that extra pressure, which is why you need to be sitting, so your leg's in the right position to do that.
Wow, so you could just about play it bent double, but you'd look ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there are some photographs of busking pipers in olden times who had a sort of crook that they would put under their leg, so they would keep their leg in a bent position, but they were sort of standing on something to keep it in that position, but were effectively, standing with their leg propped up.
Got it.
So it could be done.
but why would you, when you could just sit down?
Yeah.
What are your qualifications?
I've been playing eland pipes since the late 1970s.
Good Lord. Are you any good?
Good enough.
I mean, can you give us a go or not?
I can't.
No.
I'm visiting family in Stevenage. I live in the States, and so my pipes are in the States at the moment.
Well, that's a perfectly reasonable explanation. You don't have any advice for Christy on how he might unbend the barrel for his stock? Does he need a new barrel, do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, once you've bent something, you really need to get the.
You don't want to be
either
undertaking...
get something new or go to
specialist,
an instrument repairer and get it...
I mean, how long are you over for?
I'm over until the end of next week.
And when did you arrive?
Tuesday.
So you're here for a fortnight, give or take?
Yeah.
And you've turned on the radio... And you've heard a question from some bloke you've probably never heard of before, asking...
Oh, no, I listen to you regularly.
Oh, bless you.
So...
OK. No, fair enough. I was just marvelling at the coincidence of you being an uilleann pipe player, and then I was getting one question ever about the uilleann pipes, and it coinciding with your 2-week visit to the United Kingdom. But it's nice to know you're listening to me back in the States as well.
Well,
thank you.
But also my younger brother had actually tried to phone in for your previous hour and not being called, but he was carrying on listening. So he messaged me and said, "Oi, James O'Brien wants to know about eland pipes." So one of the family got on.
That's lovely. Oh, that's absolutely perfect. That's why we do it. Ian, have a round of applause on me and a safe journey home. Oh, that's lovely. What a lovely mystery hour it's been. 12:54 is the time. Ian's on the Wirral. Ian, question or answer?
It's an answer for you, James.
Carry on, Ian.
It's to do with the football commentators and how they prepare for matches and know how the players will line up, what they will look like, and how they will perform in theory. Now, what you said earlier was absolutely correct, but it gets easier and easier for commentators these days because the Premier League, the FA, and FIFA and UEFA send all the commentators a video, as long as you're accredited for the event, of course, and they get all the players to say their names properly, and then you get to see what they look like and how to say their names. And the only problem with that, of course, is if they have a haircut before you see them on the pitch. But it usually works. 9 times out of 10, it'll work.
Unless David Beckham, who was cutting his hair like it was going out of fashion, was pretty recognisable anyway.
Yes.
You didn't need to worry.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you obviously make notes on how they run. So much of football is on the TV now. On YouTube, you can watch commentaries in Albanian. So I watched Albanian commentaries to know how to learn Albanian names when I did them. And the other thing is you take your binoculars and watch the players warming up. So if some of them have got different coloured boots or they've got strapping on their knee, that kind of thing, you notice it.
So Mary is going to be absolutely beside herself with joy because you've given her a complete... And I mean, everyone has worked out what your qualifications are. But the point I was making, not very well, is that it's actually... So some people think my job is 3 hours a day, and some people thought your job was 90 minutes. It's actually a lot more than that.
My job is sometimes 3 or 4 days per match, I would say.
Exactly.
You've got to watch the previous games played by the team, so that's 90 minutes of one team and 90 minutes of another team. Sometimes they haven't chosen the same players, so you've got to try and find out about the players that they haven't chosen. you have to learn about all kinds of things to do with the crowd figure and the layout of the stadium, the names of the ends of the ground.
This is it. You have made Mary's day. I can reassure. So anyway, we need to go through the motions. Qualifications, please.
Well, I commentated on 5 World Cups for the BBC.
Yes, that will do. That will do. And when did you hang up your headphones?
I hung them up in 2019 when I was doing a game for TalkSport. Aston Villa against Chelsea. You had no expert. You had to talk all through it on your own, and my voice went horrible like this. And I thought, no,
you've had enough.
I can't do this anymore.
Used to,
I'm in my 60s now.
It used to. What's your surname, Ian? I should know, but I don't want to.
Yeah, Ian Brown is my name.
Brown, no,
I
thought
didn't mention all the travelling. The travelling takes a toll that nobody takes into account.
No, well, you're enjoying a well-earned rest. Although I sense that you're keeping busy. Did you know, Ian, that TalkSport until quite recently could boast about having provided the most listened to speech radio programme in the history of commercial radio, but it lost its crown.
I believe they've been overtaken.
Well, they have. It's a shame we didn't have you here to commentate.
Yeah, I did my research. James O'Brien is the new number one.
There it is, yes. Thank you very much. Lovely work for Ian as well. Give him a round of applause, all of his own. Ian Brown there. With all the details. And that bit was fascinating about them sending out a video of all the players pronouncing their own name, which Mary is going to be in seventh heaven with all of that knowledge and information. Top work, Ian. Thank you. Last word quickly to Paul in Marlow. Paul, question or answer?
I've got an answer.
Go on.
I've got John Motson's crib sheet in front of me.
Oh, love it. Did you buy it at an auction?
No, I got to know John from work, and he gave it to me.
And which game?
So this is Wednesday, August the 23rd, 2000, Newcastle United against Derby County. All the players are on the left side, right side. It's on an A4 piece of paper.
Yeah.
So it's got, like, for number 9, Alan Shearer, and John has written 199 league goals so far, Southampton 23, Blackburn 112, Newcastle 64. And that's about the maximum for each player, but each player has got, 3 or 4 lines that John had written down.
So I think this is one of the most comprehensive Mystery Hour answers ever between you and Ian. Mary has been delivered all of her, beyond her wildest dreams. I'm going to say something to you, Paul, that I should have said to who rang in with the answer to the zebra question. What was his name? It was Paul and Gary. I should have said to Gary in Calais, I should have said, you really earned your stripes.
Do I get a round of applause? You didn't ask me what my qualifications are.
Well, you've told us you've got John Motson's crib sheet.
Well, even more qualifications.
Go on, then.
One of the creators of the UEFA Champions League.
What, you are?
Yeah.
Flippin' heck, mate. Have a round of applause.
Thank you.
That's all right. Can you get me some tickets?
I had trouble getting my own tickets, John.
Top man, lovely stuff, football royalty. And that's it for another day. Who am I going to give the ball game to? I don't know. Let's give it to Vanda, because we didn't get an answer for her children's question. I get a bit, I don't know what, there's a thin line between chivalry and misogyny.
Go on.
Do you not think, well, I'd never open the door, I'd never hold the door open for a man, but I would hold the door open for a woman.
I like that, I don't know.
I know, but I think I may be upsetting the manosphere by. I think I give disproportionate numbers of games to female callers.
I wouldn't worry about that.
I'm not. I was briefly.
Can I say something about commentary before you move on?
Yes, you can. Coming up on the outside lane, Sheila Fogarty has just arrived in the studio with some commentary contributions to this conversation.
I mean, horse racing commentary is fantastic, but my 2 that stand out for me are former 5 Live colleagues of mine.
Of course.
Vassos Alexander commentating on diving, Olympic diving.
Yeah.
You would think that would be as dull as anything, but he made it so good. And then the other fantastic bit of commentary, I was listening to the Wimbledon final when Andy Murray first won.
Yes.
And Jonathan Overend, who's a fantastic tennis commentator, and the speed of that, in men's singles tennis is extraordinary. And that moment, just the second before he actually won it, his commentary was what commentary often should be, which is really minimal.
Yeah.
And I was listening in the car, and he just said, very quietly, he just went, "Here it is." And then the place erupted.
Wow.
And it was brilliant.
Wow.
Absolutely brilliant
Must be like
piece
playing
of commentary.
A concert piano, just getting that little note.
Absolutely right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely stuff. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can also stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinions. You can listen to a range of podcasts, including mine. So do download the official LBC app for free from your app store now. Tom Swarbrick will be with you at 4 on LBC, but now it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
James O'Brien on LBC.